Hello, my dear viewers. This amazing story will be very instructive for you. It is very interesting and beautiful. I wish you enjoy watching it.
Naomi has always loved to dream. Since childhood, the girl grew up a very gentle nature. She had a wonderful character, and almost always she was hovering somewhere in the clouds. Naomi saw what kind of family she had and wanted to have everything the same. Her beloved husband, her children. "Mom, I'm going to the library," she often said. And indeed, she would go to the library, pick up some women's novel, sit and read it right there. "Daughter, don't you want to go to the movies?" her mother would ask her on weekends. Of course, Naomi liked it very much when she and her mother went out, watched a movie, and then discussed it. If the movie was about love, often, both woman and girl cried, even if there was a happy ending. "Naomi, what do you want to be?" her mother asked her when she was already in high school. "I love children and I want to spend my life with them," she said. That's wonderful. Her mom approved of her choice. The girl was exemplary. She almost never went out, only sometimes with girls at discos, which were held at school or so, in the yard to sit and chat at the table. They were four friends: Naomi, Natalie, Casey, and Nancy. Nobody singled anyone out. They all talked the same way. "Hi." They came by to pick up Naomi one night. "I probably won't go out tonight," Naomi told them, because she wanted to spend the evening with her mom. She said there was a movie on TV that she'd been wanting to see for a long time. "Come on, let's go. You'll have time to watch it." The girls kept up with her. "Okay, I guess Mom won't be offended." She went to change. Of course, Mom wasn't offended. She understood that the girls are young. They want to go out. When else will they have such an age? And now, when there was only a little bit left till the end of school, it was necessary to give her daughter some freedom. "Well, are we going to the disco right away?" Nancy asked everyone. "Where else would you like to go?" Naomi turned to her. "Don't you know that there is a new cafe in our town where there are different desserts and ice cream? We can go there," looked at her friend's watch. "Sure, let's go. I haven't been there," Naomi said, and thought to herself that her mother usually found out that there was something new in town, and they went there. The girls came to the cafe, sat down at a table, ordered ice cream, sat enjoying the cold dessert. At this moment, no one even thought how their lives would turn out, what would happen. But for Naomi, this day was fateful. At some point, the bell above the door jingled. Everyone turned their attention there. A group of guys entered the room. One was tall, blonde-haired, blue-eyed. Naomi herself doesn't know why she paid attention to him then, but she really liked the guy. The guys didn't pay any attention to the girls. They walked over, sat down at a table, and began to discuss some topics of their own. Naomi nudged Nancy in the side. "What?" Turned to her. "Where the hell are you?" The girls laughed. "Did you see the guys who just came in?" Naomi pointed to the table where the young men were sitting with her eyes. "And what?" they asked. "That tall one over there." The girl spoke in a half whisper. "Did you like him?" All the others who sat with Naomi at the table were smiling. Naomi blushed because they had never talked about liking guys before. Maybe they had, but everyone kept quiet. "Oh, Naomi, you're kidding. Is it love at first sight?" Natalie had already finished her ice cream and was waiting for everyone else to do the same. "Why not?" Naomi regretted telling the girls anything. "All right, everybody, and us sitting here staring at the guys, get up and let's go," Nancy ordered. She was the leader of the group. The girls did get up. Naomi didn't want to leave, in case she never saw him again, but staying here alone wasn't an option either. They went out, headed for the House of Culture, where the disco was held. On the way, they talked about some unimportant little things. Naomi was not here. Yes, she was walking next to her friends, but the tall blonde man did not get out of her head. The girls went inside and almost immediately went dancing. And what was Naomi's surprise when the slow dance started? The young man from the cafe came up to her. "Would you like to dance?" he asked her. Yes, she was speechless and everything else because she couldn't believe that this was actually happening. He led her to the center of the room. They started dancing. "My name is Evan," he told her. "I'm Naomi." She wanted to look at him, but she couldn't look up because she was too shy. "I noticed you at the cafe," he told her. "Yeah," she said, and then she was silent. She was ashamed to admit that she had noticed him in the cafe. She danced and thought to herself that it was really fate that they both noticed each other and liked each other at first sight. As soon as the dance was over, the girls came up to Naomi and started asking questions. "Naomi, that's the guy from the cafe," Nancy told her. "And you think I didn't notice that?" She smiled a little. "And what did he tell you? What was his name?" They began to pile questions on the girl. Natalie and Casey stood back. They were very curious too. "I don't know anything yet. We just danced and met. His name is Evan. He told me that he saw me there too." Naomi told them, and she saw that the guy had come downstairs too, standing there looking at them. "Naomi, can I talk to you for a minute?" He came up to them. "Hi," Nancy said to him. "Evan, meet my friends Nancy, Natalie, and Casey," said the girl, and for some reason she blushed again. She didn't realize what was happening to her. It was the first time she had been like this. Naomi began to carry over to herself all the things she had read in women's novels. There she was, so modest, quiet, docile, and he would take her by the hand and lead her through life. That's what she thought as the guy walked her home that evening. "Why haven't I seen you anywhere before?" Evan asked her as they approached her house. "I don't know," she answered. She didn't want to go home. She wanted to spend some more time with him. But she realized that if it was real, if it was true, they would see each other again tomorrow and maybe start talking. "Let's meet tomorrow," as if Evan had read her mind. "Sure, I'm free after school. Come to the courtyard," she told him. They agreed, said goodbye, and the girl went home. "How was the walk?" her mom asked her. "Great." Naomi was shining like a new dollar. "Tell me what happened. What happened? I haven't seen you so happy for a long time." Mom guessed that her daughter had something good. "I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I think I fell in love." Clasped my hands in a lock, stood looking at Naomi's mom. Her face was smiling from ear to ear. "Oh, daughter, be careful, don't get burned," her mom told her. "Of course, I don't know yet, but I think Evan is nice." Naomi had always been like that. Whatever happened in her life, she always thought several steps ahead, and now she wanted everything to be as it was in her dreams. The next day they met. At first, when she approached him, he took her hands and for a few minutes they just stood looking at each other, smiling. "You have such good energy," Evan told her then. "And you have." She didn't know what to say to that, so she said so. "You know what, I think we should start dating." Evan was calm, and the fact that they knew each other so little didn't bother him in the slightest. "We could try," she replied, and inside she was jubilant. It had to be that day, to go to the cafe where he was. And then he came to the disco. Is that what happens in life? Naomi used to think that only in love novels they wrote like that, in books or something, but it was impossible. From that moment on, the guys started dating. Naomi introduced Evan to her parents right away. After a while, Evan introduced her to his mom. Now every night they met, went for walks, went somewhere, both of them told each other different stories. "I'm leaving soon," Naomi told him one day. "Where?" He didn't understand. "To study." She laughed back. He looked so scared. "You scared him?" He waved his hand at her. "I think that this separation will not affect our relationship with you," the girl asked him. "You know, I could come with you," he said after a short pause. "That would be perfect," she smiled. After receiving her diploma, Naomi immediately applied to the institute where she wanted to go, got accepted, and first checked into the dormitory. Evan promised that when he solved all his questions, he would come to her. And then they would think about a rented apartment. Since the girl had planned to study here for a long time, she liked it, and she wanted to do it. She wasn't lazy, even when Evan came to visit during the week. They would walk around a bit so that she would have time to do whatever assignments were set. Then the young man said that he could finally stay and they could try to start living together. Naomi was both so pleased by this situation and a little saddened. She realized that if she started living an adult life, she would have less time to study. But she couldn't say no because she really liked this man. "Wow, that's a lot of work," Evan told her. She had already completed 3 years of school, and she had a practicum ahead of her. Naomi could not decide where she would go, either to her hometown or here, where she had already been offered a place. Of course, in the native walls would be very good, but since Evan had already got a job here, she thought that another separation was not necessary in her life. So she agreed to do her internship here in this city. "You decided to stay here after all," the young man told her. Yes, what's the point of going back and forth? Now I'll get an internship, then I'll graduate, and maybe I'll get a job here too, Naomi said. When Naomi came to the school, she could not put it into words how much she liked it here, how much she liked all these children. She had memorized each one during the time that practice was going on. Naomi managed not only to make friends with these children, but also to learn a little about each one, what kind of character each one had and what kind of approach each one needed. When she entered the 4th year, she didn't want to think about anything else, only about going to work. She lived her studies and knew that everything would work out for her. When the girl was already in the 5th year, her mother suddenly came to visit her. She did this very rarely, but here the daughter saw that the woman did not have everything in order. "Mommy, what happened?" She hugged her, and at that moment she did not hold back and cried. It turned out that Naomi's father had left her for another woman. Can you imagine? Her mother looked at her with tearful eyes. "How is this possible? You always had an exemplary family," sat Naomi on a chair and took her hands on her head. "I myself never imagined that I would be alone in my old age," the woman said. She stayed at Evans with Naomi for a few days. In the meantime, the young man decided that while his future mother-in-law was here, he had to propose. He did everything correctly and beautifully. The restaurant, flowers, ring, smiles, and then the main words in Naomi's life. She thought back to her childhood dreams. In them, everything was just as Evan had done now. "Oh, children, how happy I am for you," her mother had said. Once Naomi had read a book that described a girl's wedding. It was written that she wore a light white dress, which was tied around her figure, with a hat on her head. And for some reason, she visualized this image in her head so much that she couldn't think of anything else but that. "Darling, how about an ordinary classic dress?" her mother asked her. "No, I want such a dress." She drew a sketch on paper, but they couldn't find it in the stores. Then, while the girl was at school, which she was coming to the end, she passed the state examination, diploma, everything else. Her mother was looking for a seamstress to do what her daughter wanted so much. "Honey, look what I have here," stood the woman at the closet when her daughter returned from her studies. Almost everything was already turned in. There was only a little left. "Well, show me," Naomi guessed, but she had no idea it would really be so beautiful. "Close your eyes," her mother smiled. Naomi closed her eyes with her hands. She waited. She heard the closet door creak open. She took her hands away. She watched and remained silent. "Mom," she finally exhaled and walked over to her. "Everything for you, my dear." The woman realized that her daughter liked everything. When Evan came home in the evening, the bride-to-be decided not to show him the update and not to tell him, so that it would be a surprise later. They had dinner, agreed that the application would be filed now, and the wedding would be held at the end of the summer. Naomi wanted to get a job by then, and she believed that everything would work out. "As you say," the young man pressed her to himself. Mom decided to stay with the young people. She wanted to help them in everything, and as soon as they signed to leave. So far, everything in the girl's life was as she once dreamed. Study was behind her. Her beloved was near. Only happiness and nothing else. "Hello," she came to school. "Good afternoon," the headmistress looked at her. "I would like to get a job with you." Naomi smiled, because she and this woman had known each other for a long time. When the girl was interning, Beatty herself had told her that she was always welcome here. Of course, Naomi, she extended her hand and took a folder with documents. The girl was sure that she would succeed. There was not a single doubt. She was expected to work in September, and now she could get married. "Nancy, hi," Naomi called her friend. Since they'd been separated, they'd seen each other very rarely. "A friend, finally," she said. "I want to invite you to the wedding," Naomi said, and listened to her friend's reaction. "Are you going to call Natalie and Casey yourself, or should I?" Nancy asked. "No, I'll do it myself," smiled the girl. "Okay, see you later then," said the friend, and they said goodbye. After that, Evan booked the restaurant. Everything was ready. There weren't very many people at the wedding, but it was fun. Evan and Naomi were happy. Mom went home. She hated it so much, but she couldn't stay with the kids all the time, could she? "Beloved, now we have to think about the babies." Evan hugged her, burrowed into her hair, and whispered. "Beloved, wait a little while. I have to do some work," she said. Yes, of course, he kissed her. The work was not easy. At first, Naomi, when she started working, had been kind, making concessions to everyone. But with the children she worked with, she had to be strict with them because they could be sassy. If you were nice to them, they didn't listen, they behaved badly. Naomi began to develop a strong character, a strong voice, and though she cried a lot in the evenings, she liked working at the school. Why do you go there if you cry afterwards? Evan said irritably. He couldn't see his wife suffering. No, I like everything. It's just emotions I can't let out. She lifted her face and smiled. I see it'll get you through school. Her husband didn't like the way things were going. 3 years passed, Naomi still hadn't talked about having kids, even though Evan really wanted to. Well, wait a little longer, she told him. How many can you do? Look at yourself. With your school became nervous, twitchy, he told her reproachfully. Darling, don't be nervous, she sat up to him. Good. He kissed his wife on the neck. At work, the girl was praised, and after 7 years of her work, the director summoned her to her office. Hello, walked an excited Naomi into her office. Have a seat. The woman showed her to a chair. The young teacher was worried. Naomi, would you like to be a head teacher? The principal asked. What? The girl didn't expect to hear that. Why you work? You have all the indicators on top. Saw Naomi that in the hands of the headmistress again all her documents. Good, it meant a promotion, which meant she was doing a good job. Back home today, she returned in high spirits. She and Evan had had a strained relationship for about 6 months. He could stay late at work, go out with his friends and more. The only complaint he had with his wife was that she was exhausted and worked too hard. Naomi hoped that it was just a crisis in the family life, and that soon everything would pass and it would be like before. Evan, I'm home. She entered the apartment, but the answer was silence, as usual lately. The girl went to the kitchen. She put the kettle on, made a light salad, sat down at the table. After that, she picked up the phone to call her husband. When she opened the list of recent calls, she grinned. Why is it like this? She asked herself. Before, when she first wrote down her future husband's number, she had him listed as her favorite, then changed her phone and listed Ivan with just a name. But now the screen was simply labeled husband. Where had it all gone? Where was this great love of theirs? At that moment, he answered her. Honey, where are you? Naomi asked him. And you? I'm at home. I wanted to cry. And I'm at work, he said, because a couple of years ago, he used to come and wait for her, cook dinner, buy flowers, and his wife was gone. When he called, she said she was at work. It's late. She looked at her watch. And what? A lie had piled up. He lied to her. Come, we need to talk, she asked. But he came back when Naomi was already asleep, did something briefly in the kitchen, then came into the bedroom. He took a pillow and a plate and went to sleep in the hall. Good morning. She passed him when she woke up. Morning. He squinted against the bright Keshi because Naomi had opened the curtains. We need to have a serious talk. Naomi stood over him. Good. When they walked together to the kitchen for breakfast and coffee. As they sat at the table, she stirred the sugar in her mug and looked at her husband. Why don't you tell me where you disappear for so long every day? The wife asked Evan. You know, at work, he told her. Okay, she nodded. And what's the name of your job? What started it? He wanted to leave. No, we'll talk, as if turning on the teacher girl. If you don't believe me, it's none of my business, he told her. Evan, why is everything happening like this? What happened to our family? She looked at him, tears in her eyes. And where is it? Our family, show me. I wanted kids and you didn't. Work, work. So live with your work. He stood up and went to get dressed. I don't understand. A tear rolled down her cheek. I'm gone, she heard from the hallway. Good, sighed the girl. She had to go to work too, so she went to her room, got ready, smiled at herself in the mirror, and left the house. You don't look so good, her colleague and friend said to her at work. Yes, my husband's having a little trouble. Naomi didn't want to talk to her. Okay, when you want to tell her, you'll tell her yourself. She didn't bother her. In the evening, when Naomi was home, it was empty again. She did everything as usual. She had to do a little work today. She sat at the table until the night before, but Evan never showed up. No matter how many times the girl called him, he was unavailable. She went to bed, and in the morning she found that he was still gone, The phone was silent too. So 3 days passed. Naomi went to work, came home, where there was still no one. Listen, maybe you should file a search warrant, her friend advised her. No, you what? And if he is just at friends or women, then everyone will laugh. Naomi did not want to do it. Fine, do what you want. Her friend didn't insist on anything. Yeah, Naomi just nodded. Listen, we want to go to a cafe this weekend. Will you come with us? Asked her friend. Oh, what are you? What about? After these words, she was silent. She even felt funny. Who live in? The woman realized what she wanted to say. Yeah, Naomi shook her head. Forget about him, he'll be back now. Give him a beating. Pack his things and put him out on the street, she said. Okay, we'll deal with it ourselves. She went to her room, and a few hours later she headed home. She walked into the apartment, saw the lights on, went into the room. Evan was sitting on the couch. Hi, Naomi said hello to him in a stern voice, showing that she was about to have a serious conversation. Well, he looked at her. Where have you been? She didn't sit down. Where I was. I'm not there anymore, grinned Evan. I see, so you won't talk. She walked to the window. Why not? I was with a woman. He stopped talking. What? She turned sharply. Naomi had assumed it, but to have it like this, he himself directly told her about it. She couldn't believe it. What she heard, I've been seeing a woman for months now. Now she seems to be expecting a baby, my baby. He emphasized the last words in his voice. Good, it became so hurtful that it seemed she was about to suffocate. She wanted to cry, but there were no tears, only a spasm squeezed her throat. Naomi went to the bedroom. She dialed the number of Ariana, the same friend and colleague from school. What's wrong? She picked up the phone. Can I come over? Naomi asked quickly. Of course, she never said no to a friend. Naomi came, told her everything, and then the tears did not wait. The way she was crying now, she had never cried before. That's it, friend. You're definitely coming with us this weekend. You need to relax, summed up her friend. Good, Naomi didn't know what she should even do now. After work the next day, she went home again. Even though she was afraid to see Evan there was nothing to do. But he wasn't there as usual, so she opened her closet and looked at what she had to wear to go out with the girls tomorrow night. A cocktail dress was chosen, shoes. She promised Ariana that she would be beautiful and happy that day. Her husband never showed up, and on Saturday, after working all day, the girlfriends got together in the evening. Shall we have a rest? Ariana asked. Of course, she was exaggerating. They went to a cafe, ordered something to eat, and a glass of champagne. Everything decent. When it was late, Naomi went home. Let's stay a little longer. Look how much fun the music is, Ariana told her. No, I'll go. Naomi didn't want to be here anymore. She would have stayed a little longer, but her friend was always distracted by her other two friends, and Naomi wasn't interested. Okay, can you walk alone? Ariana asked. Sure, the girl smiled back at her. She left the cafe, did not walk a few meters, hit the heel in the grate, which was in the ground, and almost fell. Oops, she bent her foot unnaturally. How come? Not carefully. Some man came up to her. Thank you. I'm sorry. I didn't know what Naomi was apologizing for. Come on, I'll walk you out. He took her under his arm. No need, I'll do it. She looked. There was a bench up ahead. It's no trouble at all, the stranger mumbled. They walked a little deeper into the park and sat down on a bench. Thank you, Naomi thought. Her house is just the other way around. It's okay, he smiled. Only now did the girl realize that champagne they'd been drinking the evening before had given her a bit of a headache. Before that, she had thought everything was fine. Would you like some ice cream? The man sitting next to her suddenly asked her. Come on, Naomi thought. Why is it that her husband is allowed to find new women, while she can't even meet anyone in the park? Here, take it. He took out a briquette from the bag. Why don't you eat it yourself? She took a bite of the already melting treat. I can't. I went to the dentist this afternoon, he smiled. Do you live in the neighborhood? Naomi asked him. No, I came here specifically to get my teeth fixed, he answered her. Their conversation seemed to be about nothing. In this neighborhood, the girl knew that they had the only clinic in town that was praised. Yes, he turned to her, looked at her and smiled. What? She didn't understand. You got a little dirty. He moved closer to her. wanting to remove the remains of the ice cream that was over her lip. "What are you doing?" She looked at the stranger. His face was very close. "What beautiful eyes you have," he said, and at that moment he started kissing her on the lips. Naomi herself did not know what was wrong with her at that moment, always so decent and correct. Today she just gave in to a total stranger. He kissed her while unbuttoning her dress. She didn't make a sound. It just felt good. After it was over, the girl quickly got up and walked. "What have I done? What a fool." She blamed herself. "Nothing, Vanechka, to spite you. Why is it possible for some people and some not?" She came home and immediately hid in the bathroom. She wanted to wash it all away. But as the shower water poured over her, she remembered the stranger's touch, and her stomach felt heavy. Naomi shook her head, pushing the thoughts away. After that, she went to sleep. When the girl woke up in the morning, her head was cracking so hard that it felt like it was going to split. "Yes, I guess I only felt like I had a couple of drinks," Naomi said to herself, and looked in the mirror. At that moment, she remembered what had happened after she had gone home, her face flooded with color. Good thing it was a stranger and they would never, ever meet again. Today was Sunday, which meant no need to go anywhere. The girl decided to spend the whole day at home. She went to wash her face, looked at herself again, and immediately the memories of yesterday popped up in her mind. What the hell is this? She couldn't understand how she'd even gone for it. She washed her face, ate breakfast. Evan was still gone, but Naomi wasn't thinking about him today. She got comfortable on the couch, turned on the TV. There was nothing interesting there. Then the girl decided to call her friend to ask how they ended last night. At that moment, she remembered about herself again. When she imagined it, it was so embarrassing, and suddenly someone saw. But she pushed it away again and dialed Ariana's number. "Hi, how was the party last night?" she asked her friend. "Oh, and don't ask, my head hurts. I'm still in bed," she answered. "I see. Take a pill, then I'll call you later," Naomi told her and hung up. Then she got up. She decided to do a little cleaning. The apartment was already clean. She just needed to dust. And that she did. She thought she should make dinner. She went to the kitchen. Naomi was waiting for something, but she didn't realize it. When it was far after lunch, she sat down in front of the TV again. It was starting some love series. She loved it. At the same time, the girl opened a news feed on the internet to find out what was going on in their city. This page was very popular and convenient. You always know what events and where they happened. What is this? She saw a picture of their neighborhood, and then there was the news text. It said that yesterday a man came to the dentist's office and was diagnosed with HIV. Everyone who had been to the dentist's office that day should be tested immediately to rule out any cases of the disease. Jesus. Naomi clamped her hand over her mouth. She remembered the stranger's words that he had come specifically to have his teeth treated. Why didn't he treat them in his city? What to do? After that, the girl had a panic attack. She thought that if the school found out something, and they were soon to have a medical examination, it would be a disgrace for the whole town. And what next? How to live with all this? Naomi got through the day, and the next day she went to the principal's office first thing in the morning. "I want to quit," she said from the doorstep. She didn't understand. She looked at the employee confused. "What is not clear? I divorced my husband. I want to leave," said the girl so quickly, as if something afraid. "Naomi, calm down, sit down. Let's talk." Betty began to speak calmly. "I'm fine. I just want to get out of here as soon as possible," she said. "Okay, but maybe you can work for a month?" asked the principal. "There are 2 weeks till the end of the year. I'll finish them. I won't work anymore," the girl said firmly. "Okay." The one gave her a sheet and a pen for Naomi to write a statement. It was necessary to finish all the things. Naomi was afraid to meet Ariana. She didn't want to tell anyone anything, because even the closest ones could spread gossip. Now she would come straight to the first class, and as soon as the bell rang from the last class, she would leave immediately. "Girlfriend, what's wrong with you? Where are you? Betty said you were leaving?" Ariana called her. "Yeah, sorry, I don't have time." She was just dropping the call. It was a few days before the end of the furlough period, and Evan still hadn't come home once. No matter how many times Naomi called him, he either didn't answer or just dropped the call. Then his wife decided to leave him a letter in which she wrote that she was not angry with him and wished him happiness. and also that he himself filed for divorce. She does not mind, and let them with a new girl, everything will be fine. The girl put the paper on the table. After that, she went to bed. The next day, she was leaving. Mom, hi, she came home. Naomi? She was surprised. Her daughter never came without calling. Why are you so surprised? I can't come home already? She smiled naively. No, it's okay. Come in. Took her back the woman. Before this, the daughter had not told her mother what was going on in their family. But now, when they were sitting in the kitchen, she decided to tell her everything. Mommy, I have to leave, she told her as they sat at the table drinking tea. I don't understand what happened. Everything was fine with you. The woman was surprised. Evan found someone else. They are expecting a child, and I can't cope with this situation. I decided to go away. Tears rolled from my eyes. Yes, there might have been some truth to it, but that wasn't why Naomi was crying. She would never stay here, and if the truth became known, she would be ashamed of herself in front of her mother. Oh my God, my little girl. Her mom hugged her and cried too. Listen, you remember Aunt Cindy, who lives somewhere in the South? She asked her daughter. Well, she nodded. Maybe I'll go to her place. We used to go there a lot, Naomi suggested. I don't even know. We haven't talked in so many years, the woman said. All right, I need the sea air and distance from society now, she lied. Well, maybe I should come with you, the mother asked. No, you'll be fine. I'll stay with you for a couple of days and then I'll be on my way, Naomi said in a businesslike manner. Everything was so fast and amazing, not only for the mother but also for the girl herself. Now all the evenings while she was here, they would get together with her mother, and as they had done long ago, they would watch different movies and then discuss them. The mother, in this way, wanted to distract her daughter from bad thoughts. Don't be bored, I'll be there soon, Naomi hugged her, thinking that it might not be true. Good, and you there as you get settled, be sure to call, cried and kissed her woman. Naomi went to the station, got on the train, drove, looked out the window, and thought that this was not the life she had dreamed of. Some women sat next to her and they chatted and laughed. And here she was. The last time she had been here was when she was still in school. For some reason, the village had seemed big to her then. And now, when the cab had brought her there, she could see that there were not so many inhabitants. Anybody home? She knocked on the window. The house sloped and seemed smaller than it had seemed to her before. Come in just for fun, a woman passed by. Okay, Naomi was surprised. She went through the gate, then into the house. It didn't smell very good. Aunt Cindy, shouted the girl. Who is it? She heard from the room. It's me, Naomi. Remember, me and Grandma used to come to visit you all the time, she told her. Oh, Naomi, come in. The girl entered the room. The woman was lying in bed. It was obvious that she was sick. Everything around her was dirty and dark. What's wrong with you? Naomi was amazed that she hadn't reported anything to anyone. It's just something that happened. I came home from the hospital and I'm lying here. Neighbors go help, but still, everything is not the same, Caroline complained. Why didn't you tell anyone? Naomi was still standing in the middle of the room. Why burden anyone with your problems? She wanted to smile, but she did it very badly. I see. I think that you will not refuse me hospitality, and in return, I will do everything here and help you, Naomi said. Great, stay. I won't be bored, said Caroline. From that moment, Naomi started cleaning the house. She went to the store and bought some groceries to cook something in the evening. As she walked down the street, she realized that there were only a few houses left in the village, just like the inhabitants. Hello, why did everyone leave? Naomi asked a woman passing by. I don't know. They're all going to the city, she shrugged. I see. Naomi nodded her head. It was even better for her. Less people, less gossip. Who are you? Who are you here to see? The local woman asked back. To Caroline, she is sick. She needs care. Naomi caught herself thinking that she had started to lie a lot lately. Oh, that's good. And we're all worried about her. The woman smiled. Everything will be fine. They walked down the street together. And why are you? Do not live there at home, nodded her head interlocutress. I broke up with my husband, he left, so I decided to hide somewhere to not see anyone. The girl lied again. Oh, it's nice here, smiled the woman. By the way, my name is Naomi. She waited for her to introduce herself. And I'm Anna, she said in a friendly manner. Nice to meet you, Naomi smiled back. She went to the store, bought, of course, not everything she needed, but something. I'm back, she informed Caroline when she got to the house. She heard nothing in reply. She was frightened, but when she entered the room, she realized that her mistress was just sleeping. The girl covered her with a blanket and herself went to the kitchen. Naomi liked it here very much. She remembered from her childhood how she used to go swimming with the local kids. Now she wanted to dive into the cool water. She was alone here. No one was bothering her at all. And that was a good thing. Recently, Naomi thought about herself, her life, her health. It was sad that everything turned out this way, but there was nothing left. She didn't take any tests on purpose because she didn't even want to know that there was something wrong with her. Today and the next few days, she spent a lot of time on the beach. Caroline, how are you? She came to the house, which was now bright with sunlight. She was fine, she said, but she sounded like she was moaning. Great. Naomi saw her cheer up, but she realized she wasn't really. The woman was constantly on painkillers. The girl herself did not think about anything. She considered the diagnosis, which she had recently learned about, very terrible and fatal. So she thought that as long as she was given, she would spend her time here. Maybe someday she would invite her mom to visit, but that was something to think about later. For now, she needed to get the house in proper shape. She had already done it inside, but now she had to do something outside because everything looked not very nice there either. Baba Anna. Naomi had come to the woman's house and was now calling out to her. Yes, Naomi, she went outside. Isn't there a couple of sturdy men who could help me? Asked the girl. Oh, I'm not here, but you can call and they'll come, she said. But Naomi didn't want to invite anyone to the village. She decided that she would do everything in time. Now she was in no hurry. Thank you, she went back. Wait, come in for a cup of tea, the woman offered her. Thank you, the girl went to her. She didn't want to talk to anyone at first, but knowing how people lived in the village, she didn't want them to say anything about her. Caroline, now I'll heat up dinner and we'll eat. Naomi thought that here she began to feel something different than before. She wanted so badly to call her friend, to tell her that she was doing well, but she didn't. She had thoughtfully changed her phone number when she left, and now no one knew where she was or how to call her. She'd also warned her mom not to give her contacts to anyone. Oh, I feel so bad today, the woman said. Now Naomi went to the room to give the mistress a shot. Naomi, sit down, she was breathing heavily. What? The woman came closer to her and sat down beside the bed. Listen, I have no one. All my life I thought, here now, I'll earn money, and then a husband and children. But you see, as it turned out, if I'm gone, you can live in this house, I'm there. She pointed her hand to the table and stopped talking, closed her eyes. It was obvious that it was difficult for her to talk. Naomi took Naomi's injection and gave it to the woman. You could hear her feeling better. Thank you, Cindy looked at the girl. It's going to be okay, Naomi repeated like a mantra. Thank you. You got here just in time, the woman said. A month passed, the second, as Naomi lived here. She liked everything, only she missed her mother very much. The girl went every day to the neighbors, which were not so many. She tried to pay attention to each of them. On some days she made pies and invited everyone to her yard. Carolina was getting worse every day. Maybe you should go to the hospital, Naomi suggested it. No, they wouldn't help, she coughed. I don't know how to help you, Naomi cried every day. You don't have to help me, just let it go. The woman stood her ground. I just can't do that. Lately the mood was changing by the hour. It's okay. Caroline held Naomi's hand. She was gone after 4 months of Naomi living here. Baba Anna. Naomi came running to her in the night. What's wrong? She ran out of the house in a scarf. Caroline. Naomi couldn't speak quietly. My God. The neighbor woman understood at once. Come on, I'm scared. She did not know what to say and how to behave at this moment. Now run to the others. She waved her hand at her. Okay. Naomi went to the next neighbors. As she ran, she wiped her feet so badly she couldn't get up afterward. The women did everything right. They called the paramedics. The paramedics documented everything. They didn't take the woman anywhere because it was written in her medical history that she was sick. Everything is ready. We can bury her, Anna said sadly. Good, agreed everyone else, and only Naomi could not come to her senses. But she gathered her thoughts, and everyone went to the cemetery. It was business as usual there. After all sat down at the table, memorialized, said a few words, and began to disperse. "And you, girl, why don't you take care of yourself?" asked Naomi Anna, who stayed here. "Don't you understand?" The girl looked at her with big eyes. "You'd have a baby under your heart," smiled Grandma Anna. "What? It can't be." Now Naomi realized why she felt so bad and her mood was changing. "It can, and indeed it can," smiled the woman. "And what to do now?" was as the frightened girl. "You what?" Baba Anna laughed. "No, sorry." Naomi realized that now she could give herself away. "You see, her husband left and left you a present," the woman said. "Yes, a present." Naomi shook her head. Now she wanted to be alone to think. "Don't be sad. We'll help you with everything," Anna said. "Forgive me, I'm tired. I need to rest and think about everything," Naomi said to her neighbor. "That's it, I understand. I'm leaving." She got up and went to the exit. And Naomi was left alone. She sat by the window and began to think about what to do and how to be further. If there really was a disease, it could be transmitted to the child. If you go to register, you have to take tests. Everything will be clear at once. "No, I will not do anything. Let everything go as it goes," she said to herself. The next day, the girl went to the city, went to the store, bought tests, and then everything that may be useful in childbirth. She realized that there would be a lot of blood, so she took gloves for her hands so as not to endanger anyone. And as for the baby, she had wanted one for a long time, and there was no way she was going to give it up now and not hurt it. Naomi had made up her mind finally. Since Grandma Anna knew about her situation, she had already told everyone the good news. When Naomi arrived from town, they were waiting for her. One brought milk, the other curd. "Here, now you need it, all your own, homemade, useful." They gave the girl all this in her hands. "Thank you." The girl was grateful. "Eat to your health," they smiled, sincerely happy for the girl. "Thank you very much," Naomi smiled, but she wanted to cry. She went back into the house. The girl realized that now, if she had a child, he would need a lot of things. She used to have some savings of her own, and Caroline gave her pension. It was enough for everything. Now he had to figure out something to earn money. There were no organizations here, except for the store, but there was a salesman. Yes, and now, when her belly starts to grow, Naomi won't be able to stand behind the counter for hours at a time. "So let's remember the youth," Naomi said to herself, and went to the room. She saw there Carolina had a lot of yarn and different material. The girl took out yarn and needles, sat down in an armchair, and began to knit. Not an hour passed, and she already had a small toy in her hands. Great. She evaluated her own work. After that, she went and sat down at the computer to sell. It is necessary to tell people that she is doing it. Naomi created a small website, advertised that she knits toys and sews to order. After that, she started making products. When Grandma Anna came to visit her and saw all this, first began to grumble that when pregnant knit is not allowed, the baby can be harmed. But Naomi did not believe in such omens. She continued, "You know what, and take my old machine, even though it is many years old, but it can still do a lot of things," said the woman. "You have no idea how you will help me." Naomi has already thought about this topic, wanted to rent somewhere. "Nothing, sew me a robe," laughed the neighbor. From that moment, the girl began to sew. She was good at it. One of the women from the village went to the market in town every day. She sold milk, cheese, and cottage cheese there. "Hello, Maria." Naomi came to her one day. Her belly was already visible. "Hi, Naomi," she greeted her. "Look what I brought you." The girl took out of the bag new curtains for the windows, a robe and pajamas for the woman's husband. "Oh, what are you doing? Why so much?" the woman asked her. "I want to ask you for a favor, and I can only pay with this," Naomi said modestly. "Ask for whatever you want." The local woman wondered, "Could you take my toys to the market? Maybe someone will buy them?" She gave the bag for the woman to look at. "Sure," smiled Maria. "Thank you. There on the tags is written my email address. Maybe someone will start to order," showed the girl to the woman. "I see your point," nodded the woman. She left the next day in the morning, and in the evening she brought Naomi the proceeds. She sold them all. "You wouldn't believe how popular they are," Maria said admiringly. "I'm so happy. Will you take more?" Naomi asked. Even though the earnings were not so big, but still, it was enough for something. After that, a good sale started. Since Naomi was alone, she didn't have time to make much. It was frustrating, but the girl tried. One evening, Anna came to Naomi's house. She entered the house and looked at the products that the girl makes for a long time. "Everything is so beautiful. People like it for a reason," she said. "Yes, thank you," was grateful to all these residents. Naomi, "Listen, my dear." The woman sat down at the table. "You're due soon, and you're not even going to the hospital. You see, I have a fear of big cities lately. I don't know, maybe it was the divorce. I had to lie to the girl again. And where are you going to give birth?" Grandma made big eyes. Here, she showed me the place she had prepared for the birth. "What? Are you crazy?" Grandma Anna was surprised. "What's wrong? Everyone used to give birth like this." Naomi almost cried. She was waiting and afraid of this conversation. "Okay, and then what?" The woman didn't understand. "Nothing, we'll give birth, then we'll register the child, and that's it." Naomi shrugged her shoulders because she didn't know what would happen afterwards. "Okay, girl, you are risky. You need to tell Aurora what you have made up." She stood up and headed for the exit. "Thank you." The girl threw her arms around the woman. Sometimes Naomi, when she wasn't working, started to think about how and what would happen. She hadn't told her mom how surprised she would be when she found out about her grandson. And that was the worst part. Sooner or later, if she was sick, someone would find out. "Everything will be fine," Naomi said with each stitch as she knitted or sewed. It calmed her down a bit. When the girl was already in her last month, she received a letter in the mail. It was from some private store. They wanted to order from the girl a small batch of toys to try out. That day, Naomi had a feast. She made pies again, cut up salads, and invited the closest people, which was practically everyone. "I didn't think it would work out," shook her head at Maria, who was still driving and selling what the girl gave her. "To be honest, I didn't really believe it myself," Naomi said quietly. "Okay, it's okay." Grandma Anna stroked her arm. A week later, Naomi went into labor. She made her way to her neighbor's house and told her everything. At first she groaned, then screamed and ran to Aurora, who knew how to deliver babies. "It's like a primitive system. You could have called the hospital," Aurora said. "It's too late to call somewhere else," grumbled Anna. "Water," the woman commanded. "Here." Naomi handed her a bag containing bandages, gauze, gloves, masks, and more. "What's all this for?" Aurora didn't understand. "Just in case, for sterility," Naomi said between contractions. "Okay." Aurora and Anna put everything on. They looked ridiculous now. Oddly enough, everything went very well. The whole thing lasted about 3 hours. And here's a mother holding her newborn son. "Should we call an ambulance?" Aurora asked the girl. "If necessary, I'll do it myself," she thanked her. Aurora left, and Anna stayed in the house for a long time. She cleaned everything, washed the floors. Now it seemed as if nothing had ever happened here. "What will you name your son?" the woman asked. "John," said a happy Naomi. She smiled. "I'm so happy for you. Congratulations." She walked over and looked at the young girl and the little baby in her arms. "If it wasn't for you," cried the girl. She thought to herself, if it weren't for her, then she wouldn't have been so careless in the park. There wouldn't have been all this. But on the other hand, she wouldn't have a son now either. She was so tired that, while John sniffled beside her, she dozed off too. She woke up to her son stirring. Naomi was so curious about all this, she tried to feed the baby, but there was no milk yet. The next day, the whole village came to congratulate the young girl. It was necessary to go to register the baby, but Naomi could not do it yet. Everything hurt. "Do you want me to do it?" Grandma Anna asked. "No, now, a little step back, and I'll do everything myself." "And who will let you do it?" Naomi said quietly. "As you know," shrugged the neighbor. For now, the girl was happy every day when she was near Stepa. She couldn't believe that such a thing had happened in her life. But it was true, so it had to be accepted. Alone, Naomi was good, but now, with a small child, knitting and sewing was possible only in those moments when John was asleep. The girl was very tired. She just fell off her feet. But there were orders, and not small. The girl had a choice: to refuse all customers and lose them forever, or a little patience and have an established base. Now the girl had to make another separate tab, which demonstrated what Naomi was sewing. because where the toys were, it was no longer relevant. "What are you doing, girl? You must be exhausted already." Grandma Anna came to her once again. "No, I'm fine," Naomi answered her. "Why haven't you registered the baby yet?" the woman asked. "We'll do it," Naomi said tiredly. "Look at you. Who do you look like? And let me take John for a walk, and you get some sleep," the woman said sternly. Naomi looked at her and fell asleep as she walked. "That's it. No more talking. Go to bed," the woman commanded. "Thank you." That's all the girl said. While Baba Anna went outside, the young mistress was already asleep. She was so tired lately that she just couldn't stay on her feet anymore. Sam came home. He lived with his mom. He was fine, but he couldn't forget one thing that happened to him recently in the park of the neighboring town. "Son, why are you sitting there? At least go out," the woman said to him. "I don't want to," he told her. The young man worked for himself. He practically never left the house because he didn't need to. "How so? I don't want to. All young guys go out, meet girls, and you are always alone, like a beggar." The woman was indignant. "I like one girl," he confessed to his mother. "And why don't you go out with her? Don't invite her to visit." The woman was surprised. "Because I don't know her," he answered truthfully. "What do you mean?" The woman didn't understand. Just like that. "I don't know, that's all." The young man began to feel sad. At that moment in the park, he didn't know what had gotten into him. He just wanted to kiss her, but it had gone too far. And now those eyes, the smell, the hair, everything came back to him, and he couldn't get rid of it. When a few weeks had passed since that moment, the young man decided to go to the place where he had been not so long ago and meet his mysterious stranger. He remembered that she had told him about the neighborhood where she lived. He would walk there. Then he would go to the park, sit on the same bench, waiting for her to remember and come. But it didn't happen, and the guy was bored and suffering. "Why are you like this? How long has it been?" his friend asked him. "You see, there is a girl I want to find, but I cannot," he said to his friend. "And what's the problem? The internet will help you," he replied and smiled. "You see, I don't even know her name," he still said sadly. "What do you know?" "Nothing, the city where she lives. And that's all." Sam waved his hands. Understandably, the friend asked everything he knew, wrote down, promised to think of something. But the latter couldn't do anything about it either. Naomi's social media accounts didn't list her as living in the town where they'd met Sam. And there was no other way to find her. "So friend, don't be sad. Let's go to a club or a cafe together, meet someone, get acquainted," Alex asked him. "No, I don't want to." The guy shook his head negatively. "And suddenly you will meet her, and she is not the one you dream about. You said yourself that you saw her only a few minutes," said the comrade. "You don't understand. I feel like we have a connection," Sam told him. "Okay, you said you know what neighborhood she lives in. Maybe we'll go there and just walk through all the houses," Alex suggested. "Do you have any idea how many there are?" The young man was surprised. "Well, what do you suggest then? Imagine how many women from this city, and suddenly she was there, not a local, just like you." Could not change his friend's mind. "Alex, I don't want to talk about it." Sam didn't want to talk about it. He didn't want to talk about it at all. "I see, you don't want to talk about it. Just say so," Alex told him. They talked a little more, and then Sam withdrew into himself again. He sat down at his computer every night, opened the girls from the city where they met, and just looked at them. Maybe he'd fall for her, but unfortunately that didn't happen, and Sam suffered again. "Why is she so firmly planted in my head?" he asked himself. "Son, come out." His mother came home from work. He sometimes thought she was calling him to help him with something. But no, in the corridor stood another someone's daughter. "Hello," the young man said to the girl, but he looked at his mother with judgment. "Why are you standing there? Invite Casey into the room," the woman said. "Come in." The young man couldn't tell his mother in front of the girl that she was meddling in his life. "Hi," she walked by, clearly shy. "Mom, why do you bring them here?" the guy told her. "Look, what nice girls. Why do not you want to communicate with them?" asked him a woman. "Mom." Sam looked at her indignantly, took the kettle, cups, and tea, and went to the room where Casey was waiting for him. "All right, you sit here and I'll go for a walk," the woman said. "All right," nodded Casey's head. As soon as his mother left the apartment, Sam immediately relaxed. He'd start talking and making things up so that Casey would see it all and go off on her own. You think I like it? She got the hint. Then why did you come? The young man didn't understand her. I couldn't say no to my mom. Neither could you. Casey rolled her eyes. At that moment, Sam realized she wasn't the good girl her mother had told him she was. Do you want a beer? The young man asked her. Yeah, she nodded her head. Sam realized that at least he could talk to someone normally instead of sitting with hot tea in his hands and pretending to like everything. You want to go out tonight? Casey asked. Nah, I don't want to. He turned on the TV, threw his feet up on the couch, printed out a beer. Why, what's sitting here in this apartment, and even next to his mom? She didn't understand. It was all temporary, he was sure of it. Once a couple of years ago, he'd set out to buy his own apartment, and he'd done it. But then his sister and her husband got into a mortgage. That's when his mother suggested renting out his apartment so she could use the money to help pay the monthly payments. Sam loved and respected his sister, so he agreed to help her. But he had a condition. As soon as he finds a girl, he moves back to this place. That's what he shared with the girl. Wow, I couldn't do that. Casey remembered her life with her parents and younger brother in the same apartment. But I could. For some reason at that very moment, the guy remembered his stranger and he felt sad again. All right, I should probably go. Casey got up off the couch. Okay, what did we say? We say you don't like me. The young man smiled. I don't care, she shrugged. Okay, you're normal. Don't listen to your mother, Sam advised her. Okay, you are too, by the way. She smiled at him and walked out the doorway. After that, Sam started thinking about her again. The one he had met so suddenly and then lost as well. At that moment, his phone rang. He got distracted, answered it. It was Alex's best friend. Are you still souring at home? He asked him. Yeah, my mom just brought my girlfriend over. Sam told his friend how his mom was matchmaking him. I wish I could do that, the friend envied. Want me to introduce you? The guy asked in a friendly way. Sure, can you? Alex wasn't sure about it. Wait. The young man went to the balcony. Casey just came out of the entrance. He shouted to her, asked her to wait a bit. She got curious. She stopped. That's it, friend. I'll call you back. Meet me today at 7 as usual at our place, Sam said, and hung up. He changed his clothes, went out, closed the doors, and went downstairs. Did I forget something? She looked at him. No, I just thought we could go out tonight. He walked beside her. Well, why the sudden change? She was walking beside him. Honestly? He turned to her. Yeah, she was smiling. I have a friend, Alex. He's been looking for a normal girl for a long time. I suggested he meet you, he laughed. What are you doing? She didn't understand. Thought now that I'm acting like a mother by pandering. The guy explained to her. Well, yeah, Casey agreed with him. So are you in? Sam asked cheerfully. We can, why not? If you're so fun, you're probably a friend too, she concluded. Yeah, Alex would be even more fun. They were already on their way to the cafe where their friend was supposed to join them. They arrived, sat down at the table. Sam looked at the clock. It was still half an hour before Alex was supposed to show up. The young man made an order for now. He was sure that Casey must like the comrade. When the maid arrived, he was cheerful and he liked Casey right away, especially since her best friend had recommended her. Hi, I'm Alex. He took a seat next to her. Casey, she looked over and realized that her new acquaintance hadn't fooled her. Well, you guys hang out and I should probably get going. Sam started to get ready. No, where are you going? For some reason, they started stopping him together. Sit, socialize, why do you need me? Young man did not understand. Come on, really go. His friend waved his hand at him. He wanted to socialize with Casey, and he knew that if Sam stayed here, he would be sad all evening again. Sam went home. It was possible to please his mom that Casey was attached after all. Of course, that wasn't the right word for the girl, but he couldn't think of any other. I'm home. He walked into the apartment. Where's Fatashka? His mom came out. She stayed at the cafe with Alex, said the guy cheerfully. What about Alex? What about you? The mother got excited. Look, she's nice, and Alex has needed one for a long time. So I introduced them. Sam went into the room and closed the doors behind him. Good, went the woman to the kitchen. She wanted to cry. She thought that her son was not all right with the psyche. The last few months, he just sits all day at home. She tried various ways to get him to wake up, but there was nothing she could do. Friend, hello. The next day, Sam heard his friend's voice on the phone. Hey, how's it going? I was wondering. Everything is great. Casey is really very cool and good girl. We agreed to meet today, Alex said. Well, I told you so. I was happy for my friend Sam. Now Alex started dating Casey. Sometimes best friends were together. And Sam could really see that the girl was treating the young man perfectly. Birthdays, other holidays now this trio attended together, but Sam couldn't always go with the couple. Today you can't refuse to go to the restaurant with us, Alex said almost a year after he met Casey. Did you make up your mind? His friend asked him. Yes, look, he took the ring out of his pocket and showed it to his friend. Wow, and he remembered his mysterious stranger again. Stop being sad. How long can it be? So much time has passed. Are you going to suffer for the rest of your life? Said the friend seriously. Leave me alone. If it passes, you will be the first to know about it. Suddenly, I will come now to your wedding, and there's the first beauty or a great girl, said Sam. Okay, I'll wait for you at 6 o'clock at the restaurant. Just try to be late, Alex threatened with his fist. Of course I'll be there. I couldn't miss such a moment, the one who brought them together and introduced them. He came home. His mother was cooking something in the kitchen. Mammy, I have great news for you. Alex is proposing to Casey today. The young man kissed her. Come on, we should call her mother. She wiped her hands. No, you don't need to call anyone. It's a surprise, said the son, and stopped her. Well, when will you decide to do it? It's been so long and you're still a recluse. She shook her head. Oh, Mom, it's not about me now. The young man wrinkled his nose. In the evening, he was at the restaurant at the appointed time. Alex was already waiting for him. Well, are you ready? Sam asked him. I don't know. I'm very nervous, admitted the comrade. It is understandable. I hope that when I have such a situation, you will support me too. Sam looked at him. What are you talking about? Naturally, they hugged. At that moment, Casey and her parents walked into the restaurant. They approached the table. Everyone thought that today would be just an acquaintance. But when everyone was seated, Alex, in order not to drag, got down on one knee, gave his beloved a ring, and asked if she agreed to marry him. Of course, she really hadn't expected that. Sam looked at the couple. He didn't realize it could end up like this when he suggested his friend to meet Casey. That's it. Now we have to get ready for the wedding, the young man said. Keep in mind, you'll be a witness. Alex looked at him. They've been gone for a long time. The guy was surprised. Will we have them, Casey? He looked at the girl. Yes, she confirmed. And who will Casey have? Sam raised an eyebrow. The witness? She clarified. Well, not at the guy. You'll see, was all the girl replied. Okay, said the friend then. Nothing interesting happened next, so Sam sat for a while longer and started to get ready to go home. He came in. His mom was still awake. So how'd it go? She asked. Great, Mom. I'm tired. I'm going to bed. Tomorrow I'll tell her everything, he told her that evening. Okay, did not insist, Mother. The night passed as usual. Nothing happened. In the morning, when Sam woke up, he first sat down at the computer, did all his chores, and then went out to wash his face and have breakfast. Son, you need a suit right now, the woman said. Why, no one is wearing suits now. He didn't understand. You what? The groom will be in a suit, the bride in a beautiful dress, and you in a t-shirt and jeans. Was she in bewilderment? And why not? We don't know yet what Alex will be wearing, he mumbled, not understanding why he necessarily needs to be in this constrained garment. No, a suit is absolutely necessary. His mother shook her head. Okay, I'll go look online now, he said and stood up. Wait, she stopped him. Well, what else? He didn't want to talk about the suit anymore. Now I'll show you something, or rather someone. I have a friend who works in a small store. She found a unique supplier. The young girl sews unique things that no one else has, Mom said, and at that moment turned on her computer. Oh, Mom, come on. I'd rather do it myself, sighed Sam. He was already tired of her hyper-parenting. No, you just look, and maybe you'll like it. At that moment, the computer turned on. The woman entered the site, and Sam couldn't believe his eyes. His so mysterious stranger from the park was looking at him from the monitor. Wait, he walked over and sat down in a chair. There, what did I say? Wait, I'll show you what she's doing. The woman leaned over and wanted to do something. Please, the young man looked at her. Okay, you wanted to do it yourself. Look, she didn't mind. The main thing was that he was interested. It was some kind of miracle. He couldn't believe it was her. Why did it happen? When he'd been looking for her for so long, his mother just knew about her. Sam still couldn't believe it. He was looking for some kind of trick, wondering if it wasn't her, but just a girl who looked like her. But no, it was the girl who had once twisted her leg, and they had gone to the park with her. The young man copied the address of her page, threw it to himself, and immediately went to his room. Hello, he wrote to her in private messages. After he sent it all, after every second he checked whether she had read it or not. Good afternoon. The reply didn't come until an hour and a half later. In that time, Sam was all exhausted. He wondered if it was a fake site. I would like to order a costume from you. I will be a witness at the best friend, he wrote her. Before that, the young man thought about whether to tell her or not, and then decided that she would take him for a madman, did not. Sure, now I'll drop you where you need to take the measurements and the fabric you can choose, wrote him a seamstress. Great, I'm waiting. His hands were shaking. He was so anxious he was even sweating. When the message came back from her, Sam went to his mother. Mom, urgently need a centimeter tape to take measurements. He spoke quickly. Wow, a minute ago he didn't want anything and now he already needs to take measurements. She was surprised. Can you make things quicker? He asked her. Sure now. The woman opened the dresser and started looking. She pulled out everything she needed, wrote down on paper what she was measuring, and then started twisting her son this way and that. When everything was ready, he grabbed the paper and went to the computer to rewrite everything. The mother was surprised at this quickness. I'm all done, I'm sending it. He wrote and sent all the numbers and the kind of fabric he liked. It wasn't really like that. Sam had picked the first one he saw. He just wanted her to answer him quickly. Okay, I'll take a look and text you if it's not clear, was all she said. Okay, I'm waiting. He pressed the send button. There was so much excitement inside that he couldn't even breathe. The next moment, the guy grabbed his phone. He wanted to call his friend to share his joy with him. Alex, hi. He spoke quickly and loudly. Sam, I can't talk yet, quickly muttered the friend. Too bad, sighed the man and hung up the phone. He couldn't sit or stand or do anything else. He wanted to sit at the computer, to write to her. Sam knew now that the girl's name was Naomi, and that was fine. Today, he'd been in a rut all day. His mother had said something. Someone had called, but he hadn't picked up the phone. The guy just imagined how he would come to her, because the city where she lived was only a few kilometers away. Hello. He heard one thin peak in the morning and immediately jumped up. He knew she was writing. Good morning. It didn't take a second for him to reply. I looked it up and made the cutouts. Naomi texted him. That's great. Maybe I can come over for a fitting, he asked the girl. Usually, if all the measurements are correct, there is no need for a fitting, she replied. But I still want to come, Sam insisted. No, that's not an option. I live very far away from you, she refused. I don't get it. I thought it was in a neighboring town, she stated. No, that's outdated information. I'm in the South now, she clarified. I don't care. I'll come get the suit myself. Sam was not only persistent, but as brash as it might seem. Goodbye. She sent the message and exited the chat room. Sam got up from his desk, grabbed his phone, and drove to his friend's house. He didn't realize what he should do now. He knew the girl's name and the approximate region where she lived. That's what he told Alex. You know what you're talking about. If before we didn't know the name, but only the neighborhood and at least the city. Now we know the name and the whole South. Do you realize what you're talking about? Alex, there she is. I found her. She's practically already met me, Sam said. Well, I don't know. Offer her double the price and tell her you'll be there in the near future. Shrugged and suggested a friend. Great idea. He said goodbye to his friend and went home. When he got there, he sat down again at the computer. He saw that the girl was not online, but he wrote to her anyway. Naomi, hello. I need this suit very urgently. My friend is getting married. The wedding is in a couple of days. We just can't wait for it to arrive in the mail. If you want, I can offer double the price, he wrote to her. He sat at the monitor, waiting for her to at least read his messages. But an hour, 2, 3 passed, and the message still hung there unread. He went and laid down on the couch. If she wrote him the address now, he would get off his seat and go to her. It didn't matter what transportation it was, plane, train, car. He would do anything to meet her. "Sam, let's go to dinner," his mother called him. Okay, he got up and realized that he hadn't eaten anything since morning. The young man went to the kitchen. Even though he was hungry, he didn't eat like he always did. "What's wrong?" Mom asked. "I'll tell you later, if everything works out," answered her son with some riddles. "Something with work?" She began to guess. "No, Mom, you can't guess." Sam wanted to eat and go back to his room. "Okay, you don't have to say it." The woman pretended to be offended. "Mom, it's okay." Her son came up to her and hugged her. He realized he couldn't tell her anything yet. When Sam got to his room, he saw that not only had the message been read, but there was a reply. He quickly sat down at the table. "Well, if you need it so urgently, you can come over," Naomi wrote. And these were the cherished words that the guy had been waiting for. "Write your address," he wrote it. And now the seconds stretched like hours as he waited for her to reply. And lo and behold, at the top of the screen he saw running dots. That meant the girl was writing. Sam crossed his fingers. And the next moment the address popped up on the screen, with the neighborhood, city, street, and house. How happy the young man was now. "Alex, I found her." Without greeting or any introductions, Sam told his friend. "Great. You remember that the wedding is in a month. Will you have time?" reminded his friend. "Of course, and I won't be there alone." The young man was sure. "Wow, you're so confident," his friend marveled. "It's okay." Sam didn't want to talk anymore. "Okay, friend, I wish you good luck. Fly to your favorite stranger, and then I'll wait for you at my party." Alex wanted to say goodbye. "Her name is Naomi," Sam said. "Great," answered the friend. After that, the young man ordered plane tickets. He was ready even to refuse her, just to see her again. "Are you going somewhere?" Sam's mother asked him. "Of course I have to pick up my suit," he didn't tell her. It was only a day away, but the day didn't want to end. There was nothing Sam could do. In the morning, he wanted to do things to make the time pass faster, but that wasn't the case. The minutes dragged on, they added up to hours, but even after that it was very long. "Mom, I'm off." He picked up his bag when it was 6 hours before the flight. "Good luck. I don't know why you're so worried, but I wish you a good flight," she hugged her son. "You have no idea what awaits you if everything works out well." He was confusing her again. "Okay," she pressed her lips together, realizing her son was up to something. Sam was on his way to his favorite stranger. He called her that in his head, even though he knew her name and where she lived. He got on the plane, and in a couple of hours he was going to land in the place where his happiness and love might live. And again time, which in no way wanted to move. And then the young man fell asleep, and he dreamed of her, so tender and beautiful. At the airport, he took a cab. It did not matter how much it cost. He was going to meet his destiny. Naomi was in the yard at that moment. She was doing something. John was sleeping in a stroller. Grandma Anna came in to see her. "Well, how are you?" she asked the girl. "Everything is fine," she shrugged her shoulders. "Any orders?" The woman knew all about it. "Yes, one should come today for a suit," Naomi said. "How to come? You usually by mail?" Anna was surprised. "Yes, but this one insisted, promised double the price." She looked up at the woman. "Wow, so you liked it a lot," concluded the grandmother. Probably didn't know Naomi. She was so tired during all this time that already, and could not speak on any subject. If it had been up to her, she would have given up a long time ago. But she had a child growing up, so there was nothing she could do. Naomi sighed heavily and continued to sit and watch her son sleep. Naomi heard a car pull up to the gate. She realized that other than a guest who needed a suit urgently, no one could have arrived. Naomi went into the house to retrieve what she had made. She took the roll, and as she was walking out, she heard a car pull away. "I don't get it," she said, and walked faster to the gate to see what was going on. Sam, on the other hand, let go of the cab driver at that moment, got out of the car, and with quick steps also walked to the gate. He stood in front of it and waited to be opened. Naomi opened it. At first she didn't notice him, and when she saw him, she immediately began to resent him. "Young man, what kind of joke is this? Why did you let the car go?" Here it is later. She stopped talking and stared at him. Naomi, hi, Sam smiled. This can't be happening. She dropped the suit roll out of her hands. Why can't it be? I've been looking everywhere for you. He took her by the arms and no one cared about the suit bag. Who are you? She cried, at which point the young man pulled her close to him. My name is Sam. I purposely did not tell you anything when we corresponded with you. I wanted to come, he explained to the girl. Let's go inside, she said, as if something was about to happen. Okay, he followed her. You were looking for me on purpose. I'm not going anywhere, and I won't take any tests, she told him. What do you mean? The young man didn't understand. About your illness, I realized that just like that you would not look for me, and so insist on coming for the suit. She did not look at him. What sickness? He got up from the chair he was sitting in. Are you going to fake it now? She looked at him as if she wanted to destroy him with one look. Naomi explained, I don't understand anything, he approached her. No need to, I already succumbed to your charms once. She tried to remove his hands. I don't understand anything. Tell me everything. It seems to me that it's not enough that you and I didn't know each other. So you're accusing me of something else, he looked at her. And the girl saw that the guy really didn't understand what she was saying. Then in the park, she stopped talking and turned away because she felt ashamed again, even though it had been so long. Well, what then in the park? He remembered that, and further, what she was accusing him of, it was unclear. And then she sobbed. So everything, I do not understand anything. We will now sit down, and you will tell me everything in order. He pulled her behind him and put her not on a chair, but on his lap. You really don't know anything. She couldn't believe it. Naomi, when she saw him at her gate, had thought he had been diagnosed with an illness, and now he needed to bring his partner to get tested too. That's why she was acting like this now. I'm listening to you carefully, muttered Sam calmly. Okay, then on the bench, she didn't have time to finish, he interrupted her. I remember that, and I've heard it more than once today. He wanted more than that. They never saw each other once after that, neither he nor she. They didn't know each other's names. What could be the complaints? So you told me that night that you were in our neighborhood at the dentist. She looked at him. I had been, he remembered those words, but he didn't know what she was getting at. The next day, they called everyone there for dental treatment because she couldn't say why. Well, he waited. They found HIV. They had to take tests. She finished her sentence. So what next? He still didn't understand what story she was telling him. You don't understand, there was a sick person there, and you were treating teeth. She didn't finish. She thought he would understand. You thought I was in that clinic and you were infected. He finally got it. Why not? She was sitting with her back to him. Yes, I was in that clinic, but not on that day, but before that. And in fact, if that was the case, I would have been called. You leak contacts there. He pressed her against him and laughed. What you mean? She turned to him. Yep, he nodded, not yet knowing what she had done to cover it all up. Here I am. She covered her eyes with her hands. Uncomprehending, he turned her towards him and took her hands away from her face. You have no idea. And she told him how she had written a letter to her husband, how she had come here, looked after her aunt. Well, you have no idea. The young man didn't know what to say. Wait, she pulled away from him. What? He didn't understand how that could even happen in life. My God, she cried. At that moment, the doors opened and Baba Anna entered the house. Naomi, he's awake, he's hungry, she said. Let him hear, got up from the lad's knees, the girl, and went towards the woman. Yeah, she left and came back a minute later with a baby in her arms. Sam watched all this action and thought he was too late. His beloved stranger was already married and had a child. He even got up and went into the kitchen so as not to disturb her feeding. After that, he stood and thought what to do now. Apparently, he really let the cab go for nothing. Naomi came out to him a few minutes later. She looked at the young man and smiled. You know what they say about coincidences not being random. She couldn't stop smiling. I don't get it. He stared at her. Today in this house, whatever sentence was a mystery to him. It's your son. She lowered her gaze. What do you mean? He furrowed his brow. Now the worst thoughts of the one he had idolized in his head for so long came to mind. Like this, she spread her hands. Then the girl knit him by the arm and led him to the table. There she sat him down, told him how and what, about her husband, about the meeting, how she had decided to take revenge. And that's how it turned out. If it wasn't for that story, she'd probably still be living with the guy who cheated on her. Why didn't you get tested? Sam asked her an elementary question. I worked in a school. It's a small town. I didn't need to explain further. Oh, you poor thing. Why did you leave so quickly? If I'd known your name, I would have found you by now. He hugged her again. Sam, what are we gonna do? She asked him that question, and then she pulled away. What are you doing? He didn't understand her again. I said we, although I don't know. Maybe it's a coincidence again today. She looked at him fearfully. What are you talking about? How many months I've been looking for you? My friends helped me. I know all the girls in the city by sight. He did not deceive her. Do you know how afraid I was of this disease that I still have not registered John? The girl confessed to him. That's great, but now he will have a normal middle name, smiled the young man. I'm afraid not if Evan hasn't divorced me. She lowered her gaze again. That's okay. Know that you'll be fine from now on. Sam pulled her close again. Have you been thinking about me? She couldn't believe that everything that was happening right now was true. You have no idea how. He wouldn't let her go. I couldn't stop thinking about you at first either. I've always been modest. I've never done anything like that. I've never even kissed in public, she confessed to him. Well, we were not in public. He remembered how she had an ice cream over her lip, which he wanted to remove, leaned over and kissed the girl. At that moment, Anna entered the house again. She looked at the young people and could not understand anything. Is your husband yours? She asked, pointing at Sam. No, but she looked up at him. I'll be there soon. He turned to his grandmother and smiled. Great. Get her out of this neck of the woods. The girl has talent and she buried it here. The woman stopped talking. Do you want something else? He realized that there was a continuation in this tirade. Will you accept her, son? Baba Anna let her eyes go. He's mine, Sam said calmly, not doubting it. What do you mean? The woman turned to Naomi. I'll tell you later, the girl promised, though she knew she never would. All right, stay. The grandmother waved her hand at them and left the house. Are you coming with me? He asked the girl. Where to? She wondered. To where I live, he said calmly. I don't know. She turned to the bed where her son was sleeping. Naomi, this can't be happening. I've been coming to this for so long. He snuggled into her shoulder. Okay, I promise to think about it, she said. Okay, I have a friend's wedding coming up. I ordered you a suit. That's the only reason I found you. In fact, you could say it was my mother who showed you to me. He sat back and smiled. Oh, it wasn't on purpose, she sighed. Of course, I just saw you. I decided to meet you by any means necessary. He pulled her to him again and hugged her. Sam, she just looked at him and couldn't believe that this was how life worked. Once again, the girl remembered all the books and movies she had ever read or watched, and it was all just there. Are you with me? He asked her the question again. Yes, she nodded. What did she have to lose? After all, she'd been through so much before. Now that she knew for sure she had no diagnosis, she could do anything. Then a couple days here and we'll go to my place. He was happy. I agree. By now she was already snuggling up to him herself. She had missed a strong male shoulder for so long. That's great. You can't imagine how happy my mom will be. They lay in bed in the evening. I'm a little embarrassed, she said it, but she remembered that night in the park. She didn't think about it then. Everything will work out. You will meet my friend, his future wife. We will be family friends, he said, and imagined how Alex will be surprised when he realizes that everything he said is true. The next day, Naomi told Sam that it was necessary to say goodbye to the neighbors. He didn't mind, even talked Maria's husband into going into town and shopping there. Everything was going great so far. You know I own this house, Naomi asked. How would I know that? He looked at her surprised. Well, you should know, she kissed the young man. It's good. We'll hire a crew. They'll do everything, and we'll have a cottage in the south. He hugged her. The most amazing thing began to happen next. When Sam took the plane tickets, Naomi realized that they were going to a city that was very close to where she was born and her mother lived. They got on the plane, flew. The girl was silent. They landed. John was nervous the whole way, probably because of his mother, because she had the same attitude. Let's go, we should be met. Sam looked to see where Alex's car was. They pulled up, loaded their things into the trunk, drove off. Almost the whole way Naomi was silent. She just didn't know what to say. But when they pulled into her hometown, she couldn't believe it. "Let's go to our place. The girls will get acquainted right away," Alex suggested. "No, I have to go home first," Naomi said. "My place?" Sam turned to her. "No, to your place," she smiled. "I don't get it." He was very surprised. "Sam, this is the town where I was born and lived until I left with my husband to where we met," she began to explain to him. "I mean, we've always lived in such close proximity," and he smiled. Apparently, she was happy. Alex drove them to the house where Naomi's mother lived. They got out with all their things there. "Are you with me?" She turned to him. "Of course, I have to see my future mother-in-law and meet her." He took the luggage and they went. When the mother opened the doors, she looked at her daughter and the young man. She was just in shock. "Mamia, I'm sorry I was gone so long." They entered the apartment. "Daughter." She hugged her and started kissing her. "Meet your grandson, John, and this is Sam." The girl looked at the woman. "Naomi." She couldn't help herself and cried. "It's okay." They passed. The woman kept the baby in her arms. She just couldn't believe that her daughter had lived alone somewhere, had given birth, and hadn't even told her about it. "I believe everything's gonna be okay now," the woman said. "All right, ladies, get ready. My mom's worried too," Sam told them. Yes, now, no one argued with him anymore. They got into a cab and drove to where the young man lived. When they got upstairs and a woman opened the door, for a few seconds everyone just stood there looking at each other. "Mom, are we just going to stand on the doorstep like this?" Sam asked her. "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm confused." The woman let them into the apartment. "Mommy, meet Naomi. This is Naomi, your future daughter-in-law. This is John, your grandson, and this is Naomi's mother." The young man introduced everyone. "How's that?" The landlady didn't understand. "Sometimes life is unpredictable and anything can happen," smiled the son. They all sat down at the table. When they started the conversation, it seemed it would never end. Sam's mother and Naomi stayed home. John was asleep, so they left him for a while too. And the young ones went to Alex and his fiancee's house. "Do you think your friends will accept me?" Naomi asked the young man. "Why shouldn't they accept you? You're with me and I'm the best friend." He didn't understand. "Well, things happen," she smiled at him. "Yes, I know that." He kissed her for the umpteenth time. They stopped at the entrance, got out of the car, thanked the cab driver. At that moment, Naomi saw a familiar figure. Nancy. She was happy to see her childhood friend on the bench. "Naomi, what are you doing here?" She was surprised too. "Here, meet Sam." "This is Sam. We're here to meet his friend," the girl said. "Nice to meet you, Nancy." The girl looked at him. "Okay, we're off," said Naomi. "I'm in this entryway too. Let's go together." Nancy didn't want to let them go. They entered, went up to the second floor. Sam went to the door. Nancy rushed there as well. "Are you going to this apartment too?" She looked surprised. "Yes," Sam nodded. "Naomi, it's Sveka who's getting married," Nancy announced excitedly. "It can't be." Turned to the young man. He was silent. They entered the apartment. On the threshold, they were met by the owner in an embrace with his future bride. "Casey." Naomi threw herself into her arms. "How was that possible?" Sam stood there looking at them. "What do you mean?" The girls didn't understand. "I've been looking for her for so long, and you were just there to tell me at least about my mom." Sam looked at Casey. "So you didn't even know her name?" Alex interrupted him. "That's right." The young man agreed with them. The young men all made their way into the room. They sat around the table and couldn't get enough of talking. "Nancy, will you mind if I make Naomi my witness?" Casey asked the girl. "Of course not. If he's the witness," she pointed to Sam, "I'll concede." That was the deal. They sat for a while longer and then separated. "I don't believe it's real," Naomi said. "Well, you can see that things have happened in your life." He wouldn't let her go, as if he was afraid of losing her again. "You're not letting me go to my mom's tonight," Naomi guessed. "I'm not letting you go anywhere else at all." He pulled her in and held her tight against him. They returned, the women still in the apartment where Sam lived. They told about the girlfriends. Naomi's mom was just shocked. And then the girl told about the cabin in the south. The moms immediately said that after the wedding they would go there and clean it up. "Are we having a wedding?" The girl smiled and looked at Sam. "If you don't mind, I'm all for it." He kissed her again and again. "I first need to know if I'm divorced or not." Naomi looked at her mother. Divorced, the papers came long ago, she confirmed. All right, I just have to register John, Naomi said sadly. Why so sad? Sam didn't understand. I don't know, it's just, she shrugged. After that, the young man pulled her into his room. There he told her about the apartment, but if her mother was going to leave, there was no hurry. Shall we just sign? Naomi asked. Are you okay with that? He was embarrassed. Only now he thought he could have come with a ring. Yes, she turned to him, wrapped her arms around him and pressed herself against him. You're my one and only love for life. That's how coincidences happen. Sam didn't believe in his happiness.
Kira decided to walk to work today. The weather is beautiful. The city bustles along at its own pace. She thinks about her presentation at the doctor's symposium coming up in 2 days. She doesn't like to attend such events, but her colleagues have long felt that no event would accomplish its goal without such a luminary of medicine. Kira often struggles before drafting her speech for such events. It can go beyond the role of a doctor and cross the line into humanity. This can be boring to listen to. It's much more interesting to watch the realization of such ideas, she thought, and suddenly saw a crowd of people near an unfinished high-rise building. There were ambulances, policemen taped all around, cameramen with cameras and gawkers streaming through their phones. What happened here? Kara asked the young man who was adjusting his camera phone. Some dude jumped off the roof. He was persuaded for 2 hours, but they couldn't save him. He crashed, the young man said indifferently. Kara had no sooner moved a couple of steps away than a girl with a microphone in her hand appeared in front of her. Excuse me, this is CCTV channel. Please tell me, did you have time to see what happened here? No, I was walking by. Witnesses say the young man jumped from the roof of this unfinished building and crashed. How do you feel about that? It's sad, I think. And do you think there was any chance for the special services to save him? If I said yes, then the rescuers are to blame for his death. If I say no, then what consequences do you think that entails? Kara posed a counter-question. I'm sorry, I'm asking the questions here. Society cares about people's opinions, not my views. So still, was there a chance of salvation or not? I refuse to answer that question. It's an ethically difficult subject. Excuse me, I have to go, Kira hurried off. Wait, what do you mean by ethically challenging? Is the death of young people so rare that it is now a taboo to discuss it? On the contrary, I think it should be talked about as much as possible. And before such young people have climbed onto the roofs of high-rises. In the early days of my medical career, I came face to face with a long story. I can't tell it all at once, so I prefer not to answer your question. That's interesting now. Turn off the camera for a few minutes. The journalist turned to her cameraman. So you're a doctor and you know more about suicide than any of us. The journalist was persistent. You say you witnessed a story. I suggest you meet in the next few days and tell it to our viewers. How would you feel about that? Kira figured she had very little time in the next few days. She was already regretting that she had even entered into a conversation with this journalist. But immediately she remembered her impressions when those very events were happening around her. She had promised herself many times then that she would tell this story to everyone. And now it seemed the time had come. All right, I'll make time for it sometime, Kira said. They exchanged business cards, agreed to meet at the journalist's studio in 3 days, and parted ways. 3 days later, Kara came to the studio of SSTV channel. There were a lot of people in the hall. The journalist came out and said that mistakes were unacceptable, as it would be a live broadcast. Kara was now thinking about how to tell in such a way that nothing would be left out of the story. From the first minutes of her speech, there was silence in the hall. Further, we will tell all the events as it looked in the heads of the silently listening audience. On that fateful day, John was rushing towards his destiny. 2 years ago, he received his diploma, immediately got a job in a large company. During these 2 years, he managed to prove himself as an excellent financier. Recently, one of his boss's friends approached him and said, Efremov, I have been watching you for a long time. In your hands, any business is on fire. Isn't it time for you to step out of your comfort zone? What do you mean, Nathan? John asked. I am opening a new branch of my bank. I need a good, proven manager. I see potential in you and I recommend that you be interviewed by my human resources department. If they confirm your candidacy, I will sign your appointment, said a big businessman in Nathan. For John, who had only recently been promoted to deputy manager at a bank, the offer came as a real surprise. He is happy that he has been able to grow so quickly to a level where he does not have to look for a place to grow and offers come to him. John told his manager about it. He regretted having to lose such a valuable specialist, but said he respected his choice. So there are no conflicts of interest or ethical issues. John can safely take a step forward to the top. The interview lasted quite a long time, but the outcome was favorable. Now they had to wait a couple of days for the company to make a final decision. The next day, Nathan called him personally and told him that he had approved his candidacy for the position of head of the bank's representative office. The first thing John did was to please his mother, who had invested so much in his son's success. He dialed her phone number and heard her voice. Yes, son. Mom, I'm here with good news. God willing, you found a bride and are going to get married. Should I expect grandchildren? She asked in her characteristic cheerful voice. No, Mom. I've changed jobs. You know Gorodetsky, the millionaire. He owns the Rasfit Bank. So he opened a regional office in our city and appointed me director. Can you imagine? I already passed the interview. Gorodetsky himself called me personally and said he approved me for the position. I'm happy for you, son. I always knew that you would easily reach the highest peaks. So consider this your well-deserved success. Congratulations. Thanks, Mom. Say hi to Dad. Wait, son. A career is great, but you can't forget about your personal life. Your father and I have long dreamed of grandchildren. When are you going to take care of us? Mother asked. Mom, I've wanted to tell you this for a long time, but I haven't found the opportunity. Come on, you can tell me now. Do you have someone in mind? Why don't you introduce her to us? Yes, Mom, there is, but he's a guy, not a girl. What? What are you talking about? Where does this obscurantism come from? Mom started to get agitated, and John could barely contain his laughter, but he didn't manage it for long. Before his mother could be horrified, John was laughing into the phone, almost dropping the receiver. I was kidding, Mom. What are you doing? How could you think that? Come on with your jokes. They'll bring us to a heart attack faster than grandchildren. I've got a girlfriend. I'll soon get used to my new position, then I'll introduce her to you. She's a bit like you. I think you'll get along with her, John said. Well, thank God. May you do well, son. Kisses, bye. Bye, Mom. John hung up the phone and turned up the volume of the music in the car. There's so much to do, I should call Natalie, he thought. But that's when Natalie called. Hey, what's up? How'd the interview go? Hi, honey. It went great. I've already been assigned. I've had a couple of formalities for a couple of days, and I'll start the day after tomorrow. Wow, congratulations. Thank you, sweetie. And yes, I just talked to my mom. She's been asking about you for a while. She and Dad want to meet you. If anything, we'll have a family introduction party in a couple of months. How would you like that? John asked. That would be great. I hope they like me, said Natalie. Of course they will. You have a lot in common with my mom. Baby, what are you doing right now? Why don't we go out for dinner? I could pick you up in an hour, huh? I'd love to. I'm going to go get ready then. Don't be late, Natalie said. Okay, you wait, sweet, John said and hung up. The music was blaring throughout the car. John drove into the wind, imagining his bright future. He was already the director of the bank's representative office. His next step would be a place in the board of directors. He should be closer to it. Others dream of getting acquainted with him, and he himself turns to John. It's nice to be appreciated. John was immersed in his pleasant thoughts and occasionally ignored the rules of the road. He was sure that fate was always favorable to him. As he approached the intersection with the railroad, he reduced his speed, looked around, no obstacles in the way. Only on the right side of his path a dense lilac tree in bloom pleased his eyes. John stepped on the gas. Already in the next second he heard the strongest rumble and felt that he was flying somewhere with the car. The lilac tree flashed before his eyes. Yes, the tree had blocked the railroad, and he didn't see the speeding train coming. By the time he realized it, it was too late. The insight came only for a moment, then consciousness plunged into darkness. The car flew off the road for dozens of meters, a couple of times overturned and stuck between old trees. It was lucky that the impact came to the rear of the car. Otherwise, the tragedy could not have been avoided. After a couple of minutes, passengers were passing. Cars stopped and came running to help. Someone climbed onto the body of the car and with great difficulty opened its door, dirtying his hands in John's warm blood. Alive, the people around him asked. The man felt for a pulse but couldn't seem to see if there was a chance. It seemed not. He's crushed pretty badly. We can't get him out now. It would take special rescue equipment to cut the hood off. We need to call a rescue team, the man said. John couldn't hear any more of this conversation. At the moment of impact, a dark tunnel instantly appeared before his eyes. Now he sees a light at its end and flies towards that light, hoping to get relief from some intense pressure in it. He flies as hard as he can, but it is as if the light is purposely moving away from him. He knows for sure that he will find relief in that light, but it seems a long way off. John regained consciousness in the hospital 2 weeks later. When he opened his eyes, he didn't immediately realize where he was or what had happened to him. It seemed to him that he had slept a long, restless sleep and woke up with great difficulty. His mother was sitting next to him. "Where am I? What's happened to me?" John asked, barely regaining the strength to speak. "You're all right now, son. You were in a car accident. Eyewitnesses said you were lucky. Rest up. Get your strength back," Mom said. For the next few days, John tossed between heaven and earth. Then he regained consciousness and became aware of the hospital walls. Then again plunged into the chaos and loud rumbling that had recently divided his life into before and after. It wasn't until a month later that his condition stabilized. Now he began to feel his back stiffen from the constant lying down. John finally felt he could move his arms on his own. Then he asked the doctor for permission to go for a walk. "I'm sorry, but in your case, you can't walk yet. The fact is that you've suffered a serious spinal injury. As a result, the nerve signals to your extremities are not flowing. This can cause your legs to be immobile," the doctor said. It was the worst thing John had ever heard in his life. Had he really become a cripple? But he didn't want to believe the doctor's words. He spent the rest of the day trying to move his legs, but nothing came of it. At night he lost sleep. The prospect of becoming an invalid completely paralyzed his thoughts. How could this be? What had he done to fate to be punished so cruelly? The treatment continued. By the end of the second month, John was feeling well, but movement to his legs had not returned. His mother and father were always at his side. They reassured him in every possible way, reassuring him that he would walk very soon. But these reassurances only remained words. John is now confined to a wheelchair. He had his first stroke a week after he was discharged from the hospital. Nathan personally visited him with gifts and then delicately hinted that his decision to approve John as director was being reversed. Then he explained at length that the job was difficult, that he could not do it without good health, and so on. John knew this himself. He did not want to embarrass Nathan with his emotions. John thanked him politely for his attention and said goodbye. Meanwhile, millions of other people on the planet were going on with their lives. Some people were successful, their dreams came true, and nothing was threatened for it. Like Julia, she didn't get much sleep tonight either. She didn't get insomnia from worrying like other people do. It's the anticipation of tomorrow that kept her awake. Julia is the only and immensely loved daughter of Kevin Borisovich, a successful entrepreneur. She was lucky to be born into this family. Julia's mother has aristocratic roots. She received an excellent education, had feminine wisdom, and a calm character. Thanks to this, the daughter grew up a real princess. Julia was the girl who never let her parents down, while at the same time, herself from this did not suffer. She had time to go to all extra classes. She easily managed to win in all competitions. And in between, she was fond of cooking and always surprised the guests of the family with exquisite dishes in her adolescence. Then she successfully entered the Faculty of Finance and graduated with a red diploma. The dynasty of financiers has grown a worthy heir. Her father Kevin owns several firms and is famous for his charitable projects. Of course, Julia will inherit all these riches on the rights of the only heiress. While still a student at a private elite school, Julia met Sam. Between them arose at first platonic love. After school, they started dating and feelings grew into passionate love. Sam never disappointed her. He is also the son of a rich family and has brilliant prospects. Recently, Sam officially introduced Julia to his parents, and they gave their blessings for their marriage. Julia is looking forward to the day. Her excitement today has nothing to do with that. She has long dreamed of having an exhibition of her paintings that she paints in her spare time. Recently, her father decided to give her such a gift. He entrusted the organization of the exhibition to his assistants. Julia found out about it when almost everything was ready. All that was left was to place the paintings in the city's artist's house and prepare for applause. Kevin had sent invitations to all the influential people in the city. There will be press, there will be stars and journalists. This will be Julia's first time performing in front of such a large audience. Sam will be there, of that she has no doubt. At this time in the same city, student Kira was facing a big change in her life, and of course did not know through what events her path would cross with these people. "Mom, you can congratulate me. Found a job," said Kira, who had just come from her studies. Her mother was greatly surprised. "Daughter, what need do you have to work? You study in medical school. Study takes so much energy and time from you. Your father and I provide you with everything you need. Why do you need a job? How long can I sit on your back? I'm old enough to take care of my own problems. That's not the point. You should put all your energy into studying to become a good doctor. You know how much responsibility this profession entails, don't you? If you miss something now, it could affect someone's life in the future. That's what you have to think about," your mother said. "I'm thinking the same thing. My new job is directly related to my future profession. There I will gain practical experience. I will see real hospital life and doctor's life," said Kira with enthusiasm. "Wait, so you got a job at the hospital? How did they get you if you're still in school?" "I got a job as a nurse." "Daughter, are you out of your mind? Your father is a professor of medicine. Your mother is an academician, and you're going to work as a nurse. Here we go again. Here we go again. Aren't nurses human beings? I think it's the kind of job where you can fully immerse yourself in a real medical atmosphere. No, you've got to give it up before your father finds out. He's definitely not going to approve of this move. Mom, it's up to you. Dad listens to you for everything. If you say it's the right thing to do, Dad will support it. So try to understand me right now. I believe you won't have any trouble convincing your father of that," Kira said. Her mother sat down on the sofa and clutched her head. "What's the need for all this? You don't need anything. You're getting your knowledge at university. There will be time for practice." "You'll just sputter now," said her mother, not hiding her bewilderment. "Anyway, I want to be independent. You and your father don't want to admit that I'm already 20 years old. I'm an adult," said Kira in an offended tone. The mother realized that further arguments with her daughter were useless. In her stubbornness, she took after her father. If she decided something, she would stand the end. So she decided to postpone this conversation until the evening. That evening, at the family dinner, the mother herself was the first to bring it up. "Father, your daughter wants to combine school and work. She says she's taken a job as a nurse at a dispensary for the handicapped. Tell her that's not a wise decision, the mother said. Kira, is it true? Father asked. Yes, Dad, it's true. Please don't change my mind. I'm ready to take full responsibility for my work and studies, said Kira. Of course, we don't doubt your responsibility, but in your case it looks very stupid. The professor's daughter works as a nurse in a dispensary. It doesn't even sound right. I advise you to cancel this decision, or I'll have to call your supervisor, and he'll have to fire you, the father said. Whatever you want, I'll stick to what I want. Kira said yesterday, put her fork in her plate with a clatter, then abruptly stood up and went to her room. The next morning, the mother found a note on the table. It was left by Kira. In it, she apologizes for her firm adult decision to leave home and live an independent life. Julia's exhibition was a huge success. She was recognized by the public. Some of the paintings she managed to sell for a lot of money. It seemed that there was no one happier than her in the world. But even the happiest days were ahead. A couple months later, she and Sam got married. Their married life held no unexpected surprises. They both enjoyed each other's company and continued to give each other their love. Such a perfect relationship is what millions of people dream of, and these two young people never had to suffer in this relationship. On one such day, Julia felt ill. She had felt that periodically she had strong moments of fatigue before, but she wrote it off as fatigue. This time, she noticed that her body was giving serious signals of irregularities. She didn't put off going to the doctor for long. A long examination did not reveal any serious illness. The doctor prescribed Julia more rest, vitamins, and sent her home. But even with plenty of rest, Julia's health continued to deteriorate. There were no specific signs of illness, so she restarted the study. One of the doctors delicately recommended that she check with an oncologist to rule out the possibility. Julia was horrified by this recommendation, but for the sake of formality decided to take the tests. When all the results were ready, she took half an hour to drop by the doctor's office and show him that everything was normal, and the cause should be looked for in something else. But I had to stay a while at the doctor's office. The elderly doctor asked various questions and shook his head, scrutinizing the results of the analysis. I must tell you that the cause of your illness has been found. You should have come to us in the first place, the doctor said. What does that mean? Julia was horrified. The fact is that there is a neoplasm in your pancreas. I understand that it does not cause you any trouble, but that's the insidious thing about this disease. It doesn't manifest itself until it's fully advanced, the doctor said. Does that mean I have cancer? Doctor, is there some kind of mistake? Maybe I should have another test. If you'd like, you can go back for another test. Well, all the tests here lead to that diagnosis. I don't think there's any mistake, said the doctor. Julia sat in the doctor's office and couldn't feel her body. The ground was falling away from under her feet. Doctor, just tell me honestly, will I survive? Is there still a chance of salvation? Julia asked. I can't give you a guarantee, but we will do everything we can to maximize your life and its quality. But the treatment will not be easy, the doctor said. Julia walked home on wobbly legs. She thought her life was just beginning, and there were so many wonderful things ahead of her. She had never had any unhealthy habits. How had this disease chosen her, and why at such an early age? It was only when she was hospitalized that she learned that oncology does not choose a person by any characteristics. Here you can meet the youngest and most successful, cheerful and energetic, who were caught by the disease in the most interesting place of life. Everyone was shocked. Julia's parents and her new husband, Sam. They'd all made a friendly decision to help Julia fight for life at any cost. And there were other events ahead. Having gathered everything necessary in one backpack and leaving a note on the table, Aubrey went wherever she was going. She didn't have any plans, except a great desire for an independent life. Suddenly, she saw a frayed piece of leather lying on the sidewalk in front of her. She picked the thing up and saw that it was actually an old wallet. Inside were several neatly folded bills and a black and white photograph of a handsome man. Kira realized that someone had lost a valuable item and must not have noticed it yet. She held the wallet in her hands and quickened her steps to outrun all the passers-by, hoping to catch the eye of the wallet's owner. She had only taken a few steps when she heard a voice very close by. "Ah, there he is. I always lose it," said an elderly woman with snow-white hair and a sunny smile. "Grandma, is this your wallet?" "I found it over there," said Kira, holding it out to her. "Don't shout so loudly, my hearing is fine," Grandma said in a whisper, looking around. As she got closer, Kira felt a slight tingling sensation all over her body. It was a strange sensation. She had never felt it before. "I'm sorry, I saw the picture there and realized that this thing was precious to you," she said. "It is, but there's more to it than that. You didn't come here for nothing, did you?" The grandmother asked with a mysterious smile. "Yes, I should be looking for a place to live, but I decided to take a walk," Kira said. "So I'm not wrong. Come on, I'll show you the apartment, and you decide whether you like to live in it or not," said the grandmother. Kira was glad to be so lucky. She would not have to call a huge number of people and run across the city trying to grab the slightest opportunity. And if they could agree on money, it would be perfect. The grandmother with snow-white hair was walking along at a brisk pace. Her steps were quite brisk for an elderly person. They entered one of the entrances and went up to the second floor of an old Khrushchev house. Despite the old wooden door inside the apartment, the atmosphere was quite different. Very bright and spacious, several rooms with minimalist decoration. "I rarely come here, but I always find time if necessary." "How do you like it?" "I like it very much. It must be expensive," Kira asked. "Yes, very expensive, but you don't have to pay. If you like it, then just settle down and live your life. The rest will happen," she said and smiled enigmatically again. "What do you mean you don't have to pay?" "I think it's unfair." "Don't worry, I'm solvent. My parents put enough money on my card every month," said Kira. "It's not about the money, forget it. Now I have to get a move on, they're waiting for me." "You'll find everything you need in your places," said the grandmother and hurried to the exit. "Excuse me, but what is your name?" The grandmother thought for a moment, then gave Kira her wide smile and said, "Well, call me Grandma Cindy." "Nice to meet you, Grandma Cindy. My name is Kira." "I know," said the grandmother and left. Kira did not have time to ask how she knew her. And in general, a very strange woman. She catches passers-by on the street and lets them into her apartment for free. Sarah has been worried for 3 days about her son Oliver not answering her calls. She and her husband recently bought a separate apartment for student Oliver and separated him from themselves. The parents hoped that the spoiled lad would become more responsible and independent. But the hassle only got worse. Since Oliver lives separately from the medical university, his father's acquaintances began to call more often and ask why the son of such respected parents fell in academic performance. The parents guessed that the son has gotten involved with bad company and it's really distracting him from his studies. Guidance wasn't helping. The last time Oliver was in touch with them was 3 days ago, and today the teacher reported that he did not attend the university for 2 days in a row. Sarah's all worked up. Trying to talk to her son seriously is getting her nowhere. He's the hope of a medical dynasty. He needs to finish university and become a good doctor to inherit from his father a famous medical clinic in the city. Sarah decided to do things differently this time. She started dialing her husband's number. "Jack, Oliver's teacher called, says he's not showing up at the university. I think you should take the time to stop by and see him. I'm asking you to talk to him like a grown man to a man." "I'm running out of arguments," she said. "Sarah, honey, you should have thought of that before. You lost your son. You should have paid more attention to him when he was a teenager instead of following me around to find out I was unfaithful." "So much for the consequences," Jack replied. Sarah knew the conversation would go therefore scripted. She had to listen silently to her husband's rebuke at first, then still insisted that he talk to his son. Returning from work, Jack knocked on his son's apartment, but he had to wait quite a while. He was not going to turn around and leave. As he had already seen from the yard, how the lights were on in all the rooms of the apartment. Moreover, while he was standing outside the door, he heard stomping and rustling inside the apartment. So the son was home. Tired of waiting, he pulled out his key to Oliver's apartment and opened the door. A pungent odor of booze hit his nose. Clearly, his son wasn't wasting any time. Jack walked into the kitchen and saw the typical scene on the table: empty bottles and plates of food. As he stood looking at the mess, he heard a voice behind him. "Hello, sorry, we're in a bit of a mess." Jack saw the tall, wrapped woman in front of him hurriedly getting out of the shower. He looked at her in surprise and couldn't figure out who she was. The woman was clearly not in Oliver's circle. She was closer in age to Jack's own years than to young Oliver's. "I'm sorry, who are you?" Jack asked. "My name is Eve," the woman said, and walked toward Jack with her hand outstretched. "What are you doing here?" Jack asked, not sure how to give his hand to the strange woman. "Has Oliver told you anything about me?" "My name is Eva. Oliver and I have been dating for 6 months, and we're serious," the woman said. "Okay, Eva, you're going to get dressed and go to your house. There you'll have plenty of time to think about why you shouldn't pair up with a kid who could be your son," Jack said. "Wait a minute. How is it possible that you're a young and modern man and your views are medieval? Have you ever heard that there can be sincere and great feelings between people? In this case, age doesn't matter," Eva said. "You can make all the arguments you want. Maybe Oliver is just having fun with you. It won't last long. It's almost over. And now you're free to go," Jack said, and headed for the bedroom. By this time, Oliver had woken up with a terrible, lingering vigor and was trying to remember what had happened before and what day it was. He saw his father in front of him and was a little taken aback. "Father, why are you here unannounced?" "Son, why don't you explain to me why no warning works on you?" "Come on, Dad, don't start. I've got a headache. Did the teacher call?" "Don't worry. I'll handle it," Oliver said. "It's late. I don't see the point of further negotiations. Clean yourself up immediately and pack your things. You'll move back in with us. Your mother and I will rent or sell the apartment. Independent life is obviously not good for you," my father said in a menacing voice. "Dad, don't jump to conclusions. It's all right. I haven't given up studying. Sometimes I skip classes, but I finished all my exams on time. You're wrong about moving out. I'll have to start living on my own at some point. If you keep this up, you can forget about the clinic. Finish your studies and go to the bottom of the ladder, doing clinic duty and dressing wounds. No private clinic with a well-established reputation and client base for you," my father said. "I promise it won't happen again. Try to understand me, too, because I'm 22 and I'm not a kid," Oliver muttered to himself. Speaking of the baby, who was this madam? Jack nodded his head to the side. "Oh, you mean Eve. That's an old friend of mine. It was her birthday, so I threw her a party at my place. She'll be here for a couple more days, and then she'll go back to her place," Oliver said. "Why is your old friend old enough to be your mother?" Oliver sat silently because he didn't know what he saw in an older woman. "Well, she and I have a great rapport," he mumbled under his breath again. "People like her only look for naive simpletons like you to get access to your money. I'm sure you've been telling me all along that you're the head of a private clinic. Things will be different from now on. If you want to continue living apart from us in this apartment, forget about this woman. And yes, so that you don't get drawn into pathological relationships in the future, find yourself a normal girl from your university and marry her. When you're a model student and head of the family, maybe we can revisit the clinic issue. Until then, you're grounded. I'll give you a month. If you bring a normal girl, we'll talk again. If you want to keep hanging around with grandmothers, you'll have to make your own career," Jack said, and headed for the exit. He looked at Eva again, trying to remember where he'd seen this woman before. She looked familiar. "Eva, what do you do?" asked Jack. "I'm in the arts." "What kind of art?" "I'm a dancer." "Where do you dance?" "Theater." "Ballet?" "I dance in a nightclub. The whole town knows me. You've got the spotlight on me." Now Jack remembered where he'd seen this woman. Indeed, the whole town knows her. She is a famous stripper who has been performing in various nightclubs for several years now. There was a time when Jack's own friends bragged about how they managed to get this Eva for one night. Apparently, the ratings of Eva since that time has not fallen, since now the turn came to his son. After the collapse of all hopes, John has been confined to a wheelchair for 6 months. Doctors have recommended various methods of treatment, but mobility in his legs has not yet appeared. The formerly active and enthusiastic boy is now forced to look out the window all day long and watch the lives of other people. His mother and father try to distract him in every possible way, reassuring him that he will soon be cured. But John has less and less hope. His favorite girl, Natalie, from the first days did not leave him. At the hospital, she walked him, helped him change his clothes, and never let him doubt his strength for a minute. After he was discharged home, Natalie started visiting him at home. Talk of the wedding itself died down. John realized that it was unlikely that a young, healthy girl would want to tie her life to an invalid, even if she loved him. Who needs such a burden? After 6 months, Natalie's visits became rare. John counts the days until she arrives. Today marks the end of the 3rd week since Natalie has not called or come to see him. John's only hope is for his upcoming birthday. Maybe, out of pity, she'll make time for him. Son, your father and I have decided to celebrate your birthday at a nice restaurant. We'll invite your closest friends and co-workers, and you'll have a good time, Mom told him. Mom, maybe we shouldn't. Who'd want to waste time at some cripple's birthday party? If I could be of any use to them, I'd have something to look forward to. I'm just begging for their attention, aren't I? Don't say that, John. That's what you think because of your time constraints. Actually, people are very understanding. They'll even be happy to cheer you up. So go along with it. It'll be fine, your mother assured me. What about Natalie? She's been gone 3 weeks. I have no right to call and demand her attention. Why would she want me like this? Inviting her to a birthday party will make her show up and pretend like everything's normal. What about Natasha? She's still good to you. She said it's going to be a busy time at her job. Don't worry about unnecessary thoughts, or Natasha will come to you, her mother reassured her. Parents tried to organize everything for John's birthday party at the highest level. At the appointed hour, they arrived at the restaurant and waited for the guests. John's mother waited most of all for Nathan, who had once held her son in high esteem and saw in him a bright future. The support of such a person would be very helpful now. The first people to arrive for John's birthday were his former colleagues. John was surprised, as he had expected them the least. When they had worked together, there had been a lot of stuff going on inside the office, and sometimes they had had to put the screws to each other in order to get favor with the management. John was no stranger to that either. He thought that these people held a grudge against him and were happy about his new disability. Turns out that wasn't the case. As the evening approached the midpoint, John received a phone call from his former supervisor. For some reason, John thought his former boss wanted to tell him that he was on his way up. I actually overheard another conversation. John, I wish you a happy birthday. I gave my present to the driver. He'll bring it home. Don't be offended. You know I have a lot of things to do. I couldn't come to see you. Soon I'll find a window in my schedule and we'll have a friendly sit-down. And today I wish you all a good evening, said the manager and hurried to say goodbye. Whether the former manager was so busy or not is not known for sure. But John decided that the invited guest did not come on purpose because he was now a useless burden for everyone. And it was impossible to change his mind. Indeed, only 5 of the invited 20 people showed up. When John was tired of waiting for the others, he turned to his mother. Mom, you were talking about Nathan. What did he say to you? He asked. His mother had tried to avoid this question for so long, but she had not succeeded. She would have to tell the truth. Son, don't take it personally. Nathan said he's meeting with some important partners tonight. He'd asked me to say hello to you, but he couldn't make it himself, your mother said. Everything became clear with this man, too. But John decided not to ask any questions about Natalie. He realized that he couldn't take another excuse from his loved ones. Natalie never showed up. The arriving guests wished John well. They noticed his low mood and tried to leave the evening before it was over. At the end, only his parents, his grandmother, and John himself stayed until the end of the party. The next morning, John woke up and regretted it. A crushing heartache prevented him from even breathing quietly. He suddenly realized that every morning he opened his eyes in pain and wished that the night's sleep wasn't the end of the whole nightmare. What upsets him the most is Natalie. Their relationship is fading before his eyes. John wants to talk openly about it, but at the same time he is afraid to hear the truth. Natalie does call that day. She wished him a happy birthday, apologized for preferring other plans. I understand you, there's no need to make excuses. Any decision you make, I will respect. I understand my situation and I don't want to be a burden, John said, even though he had promised himself 1,000,000 times before not to fall into the victim image. No, you don't have to feel that way. You just know that I'm always here for you. It's just that I'm in a period of time where I need to spend more time on my work, Natalie said lastly. In principle, John had no questions. While he was absorbed in his heavy thoughts, someone knocked on the door. Mom went to open it. It sounded like one of her friends. Ed, you've fallen off the team, haven't you? We decided to go on a picnic as a team for the fall holidays. Here I came to tell you in advance so that you do not have time to come up with an excuse, her friend told her mom. No girls, this time without me. You know, I'm not my own person. I can't leave John alone. Though I'd love to rest, divorced in the arms of nature, answered the mother. Mother, I'll stay home alone. Father will come in the evening and we'll manage together. You'd better go on vacation, John shouted from the living room. But Mom didn't agree to go on vacation. As they sat down to dinner, John noticed that his mother had more gray hair than she had a few months ago. It's all because she's worried about me. Not only am I useless, but I'm dragging other people down too, John thought. From that day on, he was rapidly falling into depression. If he used to wake up early in the morning and try to move his lifeless legs, now the blossoming guy turned into a vegetable. His appetite is gone, and at night he sobs like a baby instead of sleeping. If his mother doesn't follow up, he won't take his pills on his own. He stopped answering phone calls from old friends. When people come to visit him, he closes himself in his room and does not come out to see them. His mother and father try to distract him, but they didn't pay attention to the fact that in the guy's head you have born an insidious plan. Julia finishes the 3rd course of treatment, and her life also changed dramatically. All plans have had to be put away in a distant drawer called If You're Lucky. Today, she goes to the doctor to find out the results of the last test after the next course of chemotherapy. She waits with bated breath for some positive news from the doctor. There were not many people in the doctor's waiting room, so Julia went in at once. The doctor was scrutinizing her tests as usual. What is it? Any changes? She asked hopefully. How do you feel? Do you feel any changes? The doctor answers as if delaying an unpleasant answer. To be honest, I don't know what torments me more, my illness or the chemotherapy. If we compare with the initial period, in principle, the tumor has stopped growing. But this may be a temporary effect. I would recommend surgery, the doctor said. Julia was most afraid of that answer. During her treatment, she has studied a lot of information and heard all sorts of stories. Usually after surgery, the condition of patients deteriorates significantly. You can forget about your quality of life. Maybe that's not true for everyone. Doctor, how effective will the surgery be? Unfortunately, no one can give a 100% guarantee. In any case, it will be an attempt to do something. In general, if you get a few more courses of chemotherapy after the surgery, the cancer cells die completely and you can talk about victory, the doctor said. Julia has been afraid of medical manipulation all her life. What to speak about surgeries when she was hysterical at the mere sight of syringes? Well, life has forced her to do it, and now she gets a bunch of syringes a day, and now her fear of surgery is insurmountable. She's convinced that surgery is just another way to postpone the imminent end. On her way home, she decided to take a walk. She walked down the street and greedily experienced life. She hadn't noticed before that ordinary, everyday life could be so beautiful, and that even a big city held some secrets. It was amazing to realize that in this huge flow, one person's life meant nothing. Even if his life is cut short right now, this active movement and the hum of the city will not stop for a second and will continue its course. While she was thinking about all this, she tripped lightly over some small object. Turning around, she saw an old leather wallet under her feet. She pulled it out. It was folding. It wasn't hard for her to see the picture of a handsome and young man in the wallet, and of course a few neatly folded bills. Julia decided that someone had dropped it and was probably looking for it. As she stood and looked around, she didn't notice an older woman with gray hair appear next to her. "I suppose you are looking for the owner of this wallet?" she asked, and looked at the wallet with a smile. "Yes, it's yours. I guess it was lying right under my feet," Julia said, and handed the wallet to the older woman. "Do you seem to have some important thoughts?" the old woman asked. "Well, how can I put it? I just want to have time to look at this life," Julia said, and put her arm around the older woman's shoulders. "I understand, but all is not lost. I was in a similar situation myself many years ago." "You were. I think the medicine was weak then. But how did you manage to cure yourself?" Julia asked with interest. "And medicine plays a secondary role here, as it turns out. It's your desire that determines a lot. I see you have a lot of it." "That's right, my life is just beginning. It pains me to realize I can't even plan for the future. Wish I could. I won't keep you long. I'm here to tell you the most important thing. If you want to get something, you have to give others something very valuable to you. Do you understand?" Grandma asked and looked at Julia with a smile. "What I need most of all is hope, so I should give hope to others. You are a good girl. I believe that you are really ready to win. You know the way, so follow it. I have to run. I have a granddaughter who lives in my apartment," the grandmother said, and hurried away. Julia had only one idea in her head: to give hope to others. But how to do that? She listened to her heart and heard a faint clue, but she decided to follow it. The quiet voice of her heart led her to a church on the outskirts of town. She prayed and asked God to grant her health and life, and she stayed in the church until her heart was firmly convinced of the best outcome of the whole story. Oliver decided to leave class early today, as he was bored sitting through the boring anatomy lectures. He called up his friend, and they decided to go for a drive around town in his car. "Oliver, why aren't you in the mood?" his friend asked. "Yeah, my dad's been bothering me. He's threatening to take my apartment and rent it out to the newcomers. I don't want to live with my parents again. We won't have a lot of time. We have to do something," Oliver said. "What do they want from you?" "They want me to find a normal girl. They want me to marry her and learn to take responsibility." "What are you going to do?" "Where am I going to go?" "I don't want to sit in a clinic after school and see pensioners. I want to run my father's clinic. There's a normal flow there, not the last people there. There's a professional team. That's what I mean, a career. So there's something to aspire to. You have to get married for that. It's not that simple. You know that stripper from the club, her name's Eva." "Oh yeah, she's not a young girl." "How not young?" "About my mom's age. Anyway, she says she's in love with me. But I've been talking to her, she's all right with me too. She doesn't get cranky, she doesn't give me a hard time. Unlike the younger ones, she understands and supports me in everything. Except that my father caught us in the apartment together and put the question on the table. I need to end it with her and show my parents a normal girl. Well, they offer you a normal option. You find a normal girl, introduce her to them, and if they want you to marry her, she will live with you and take care of you. And with your Eva, you can see in a club or in a hotel. But everything will be with you. And the clinic, and parents will be happy in a wife and a mistress, said a friend and laughed loudly. But to find a girl who will like them, that's not a problem at all. Look who's coming. You can tell she'll make a good wife. I think she goes to our university. Why don't we go over and meet her? I think I've seen her a couple times before. I'm going to try to make conversation. If anything, you vacate the front seat. I'll take her for a ride around town, said Oliver and hurried towards the girl. Hi. You're a school dear, right? I have a school dear too. Have you ever noticed? My name's Oliver. I'm Kira. I'm sorry. I didn't notice you before. Is your class over? Maybe we could go for a ride. I'm free for a couple hours. Unless I'd have to get to my work. I don't have much time, Kira replied. On the way, they chatted about their studies. Kira was smart, but not as interesting as the stripper Eva. But Oliver didn't forget about his goal for a second, so he actively kept talking to her. And when they arrived at one of the city hospitals, Kira hurriedly said goodbye and ran inside the hospital. They'd agreed to meet in the evening when Kira was free. Oliver didn't even ask why this girl was coming here. Their romance was developing rapidly. Kira had never been as intimate with anyone before as she was with Oliver now. Longing for her parents was replaced by confidence in the delights of adulthood. Oliver was quite adept at dealing with the female sex. Therefore, he had no trouble entering Kira's life and even finding a place in her heart. At first, Kira couldn't believe that her first love had come to her. But each time, scrutinizing the face of this cheerful young man, she more and more convinced herself that this is the real female happiness. She never burdened him with her current affairs and problems. He had no problems in life. A couple months later, Oliver told his parents that he had met a nice girl and they were in a serious relationship. Jack and Sarah were overjoyed. Now they began to insist on meeting this girl. When Kira heard about this proposal, she had no doubt that Oliver was her destiny. Today, Kira's work shift was hard. In general, Oliver charges are considered heavy patients. Most of them are bedridden and in constant need of help from others. In addition, people with disabilities become moody and cranky over time. It is sometimes difficult for their loved ones to cope with them. Kira had a unique talent to find a common language with each ward. Tonight, there was a conflict between two patients. A middle-aged woman accuses a young girl of stealing her commemorative comb. The girl assures that she did not see any comb. At first, there was a verbal altercation between the two. Then the girl could not stand the neighbor's outbursts and threw her mug at her. The neighbor threw the mug back at the girl. As a result, the girl received a serious injury to her eye. Kara found out about everything only when the noise was raised. She ran to the room and started to find out what had happened. By that time, both women were out of their minds. The girl was screaming and crying like a small child. The woman was inconsolable that the one wanted to hurt her. Barbara, how can you throw yourself at a man when you can solve everything by talking? Everyone here hates me. And you hate me too. Of course, we're all useless people here. But some of us even here don't want to realize that. Instead of being supportive of each other, they're willing to tear up the nearest neighbor. I think they deserve to die. They deserve a painful death. The girl continued to wail. And you, Aurora, why didn't you call me first? We could have looked for your comb together. Why do you think Barbara stole it? Because she asked me for it 2 days ago. I let her use it and she wouldn't give it back. That means she didn't have a comb of her own. So you did a good deed for her. But then you decided to charge her for your kindness. Is that how you mean it? Kara asked in a stern tone. Well, I didn't mean it that way. I wanted her to always ask me. The second patient began to justify herself. At that moment, the door opened and another nurse on duty came in. Kara, why do you need to babysit them? Would you rather I call security and have the guys help calm them both down? Trust me, they're better at dealing with these kinds of issues, the nurse said. Both patients immediately realized what fate awaited them. The guards are usually not ceremonious with anyone. That's why they're very afraid of that word. No, there's no need. We'll settle this peacefully. Right, girls? Kira asked and looked at the conflicting neighbors. Yes, yes, we'll work it out ourselves now, both women said hurriedly. In the morning, as Kira was leaving the hospital grounds to go shopping, she stopped purposely at a small cosmetic store. She got 2 combs and brought them to her charges. Here's one for both of you, now you won't have to fight with each other, Kira said. Both women were very happy with even such a small gift. Kira finally found time for other things and headed for the staff room. Suddenly, she heard sounds in the head doctor's office. I don't want to torture them with my existence. Because of me, my parents have to deny me everything. Friends put a cross on me, held a birthday party. Almost none of them came. There was a favorite girl, she gradually disappeared from my life. I've become a burden to everyone, so I want to spend my last days here, without complicating the lives of my loved ones, said the young man. Why do you have the impression that you are making life difficult for them? Asked the doctor. I feel it. The day will come when they will say it to my face. I don't want to wait for that day, so I decided to leave home voluntarily. Accept me, and I want to stay here, said a young man in a wheelchair. All right, we'll take you in. Just keep in mind that you have a good chance of getting back on your feet and returning to a full life. You'll have to take good care of your health here. We'll try to help you with that. No, I don't believe in that anymore, the young man said and cried like a child. Kara realized that the new resident of the dispensary had come here on his own. Judging by his words, he has a depressive state. That means that she should establish contact with this patient and be as attentive to them as possible. Thus began John's new life under the same roof with the disabled. Julia spent the whole night thinking about how to be useful to others. In her case, it would not be easy. She herself can barely cope with a progressive disease. But she was determined to show the world that even in this condition she had fortitude and was willing to be of service to others. This would strengthen her motivation to recover at the deepest level. In search of like-minded people, she came to a supportive community for cancer patients. She asked to volunteer. In fact, the volunteers here are those who are themselves suffering from cancer at some stage or the other. Her task is to periodically visit elderly patients to help them organize their life and leisure time. These people have proved to be in high demand here. On her first day at work, Julia received a call from a woman asking for help. She complained that she was seriously ill and had nowhere to go. Julia decided to visit the woman. When she arrived, she found a lonely woman with disabilities in an old abandoned house. It was unknown how she had survived without help before. I had a son who took care of me in some way. Recently, he had an accident and died. I signed the house over to my son a long time ago. Now my daughter-in-law wants to build a new house here, and I am in the way. She sends people every day and demands that I vacate the house, the woman said and cried. Darga realized that the woman clearly did not have the energy for a showdown. Now she needed to take care of her health. She consulted with her supervisor and decided to help the woman to be accommodated in a dispensary for the disabled. On the same day, Kira witnessed a second person being brought in. For her, these are normal working moments. She didn't bother with this woman, as it was supposedly her daughter who was next to her. But the next night shift turned out to be a turbulent one. The newly arrived woman was in severe pain. Julia stayed by her side. In the middle of the night, she ran to Kira asking her to find a doctor and examine the sick woman. It's impossible now, we'd have to wait until morning, Kira replied. But she is in unbearable pain. She needs strong painkillers. The person is suffering, think of something. Julia was inconsolable. Girl, we see how difficult it is for your mother. But now it is technically impossible to get the necessary drugs. We will deal with this issue first thing in the morning, Kira answered her. She was sure that Julia was the caring daughter of this woman. Their acquaintance had come much later. I feel sorry for her. Bodily pain is one thing, but she's also in mental pain from being kicked out of her home. Julia told her mentee's story. How did you let this happen? Didn't you have anyone else close to you to protect you? Kara asked in surprise. Me? I have loved ones. I'm fine. I mean my ward. Isn't she your mother? No, I'm just a volunteer. My mother and father are healthy, thank God. I volunteered for a volunteer organization to make it count as my yes to life. I don't understand you. You're caring for a complete stranger, right? What made you do it? I'm diagnosed with cancer myself. There's a little time for observation, and if there are no positive changes, we'll have surgery. It's a big one. I'm really scared. Do you know what it's like when you're just starting out in life, setting big goals and having big hopes, and then bam, you're diagnosed? It's like a cruel joke of fate. I met this woman on the street and she made me realize something very important. I have to help others deal with their illness in order to conquer mine. In short, I just want to live. That's all. I understand you. You deserve all the praise and respect you can get. I'm sure you'll be fine. You will recover and live a long life, said Kira and hugged her new acquaintance. So this is where you work. I hope the atmosphere of the place doesn't put pressure on you, because you are still so young. Julia asked. No, not at all, because I realize that I have to be strong enough to withstand such manifestations of life. I'm studying to get a doctor. My parents are medical scientists. They've been so dedicated to medicine all their lives, too. Why here? You would have easily gotten a job at any other hospital or even a private clinic. I think this is the real face of reality here. In private clinics, of course, comfortable, many of the horrors of our profession just do not see. But here, the disease is intertwined with real fates. I'm interested in learning all this, enthusiastically told Kira. I'm finishing my shift and you hang in there. I still have time to clean up. I have a big night tonight, she added. Do you have a date? Not exactly. Meeting my favorite person's parents. Wow, that's really important. Don't stay here too long and get ready, Julia said. Kara hurriedly headed for the locker room. Passing by the sanitary room, she noticed a strange picture. Some of the guests of the dispensary headed to the treatment room in a wheelchair and actively looked around, as if hiding from someone. Kira began to discreetly observe further. The man waited for the nurse to leave the treatment room, then drove into the office. When Kira came to the doorway, she saw the man hurriedly going through the medications in the nurse's open safe. What are you looking for in here? Kira asked. John hadn't noticed that he was being watched earlier. Therefore, he was startled. I was looking for my pills and they didn't give them to me today, so I thought I'd look for them myself. He came up with an idea. You don't have to get them on your own. You and I will go to your room and you will wait for the nurse, Kira said and rolled John's wheelchair. Kira looked closely at the fading guy but found no suspicious signs. Later, the nurse counted the medications in her office and made sure none of them were missing. Kara believed that the guy had really come for the pills. Now she headed to the locker room with peace of mind. No sooner had she reached the mirror than she heard the exhausted screams from the ward. She ran back in. A young man in a wheelchair, who had just been looking for his pills, was lying on the floor bleeding. Kara didn't immediately realize what had happened. As luck would have it, the head doctor wasn't there. Kara came closer and saw that the young man had cut himself with something. Kara wanted to call for help, but she couldn't find anyone from the medical staff. It was with great difficulty that she was able to lift the guy off the floor and put him in the bed. He was conscious and crying like a little baby. The guy was wailing that he wanted to get out of his life and end this torment. Here, Kira remembered the doctor's words there, that she should be as careful as possible with this guy. The doctor had said he was in an acute stage of depression, and anything could happen. She had to stop the blood from the wound and bandage it herself. Fortunately, the wound was shallow. Then the guy was sedated and put to sleep. Kira realized that she was going to have to rethink her plans. She dialed Oliver. Hey, sweetie, we've been waiting for you here for a long time, Oliver said in an affectionate voice. I'm sorry, I don't think I can make it tonight, she said. Next time, my parents might not be able to make time for you. You and I planned this evening 2 weeks ago, so what's the excuse now? Oliver was losing his temper. It's a long explanation, I'm sorry. I'll call you later, Kara said and hung up. Oliver was extremely angry. He was going to introduce Kara to his friends today. He was already exhausted from trying to make friends with a girl he wasn't interested in. She always seemed too boring to him. Eve was different. It was good to have her in his life. Oliver decided to distract himself from his anger and dialed her number. A woman's voice answered on the other end of the line. What do you want? Eva answered a little snidely. Honey, I've missed you. We need to see each other today, Oliver pleaded. The meeting isn't until after my show is over. It'll be closer to midnight. Wait at your apartment, I'll be there, Eva said. No, you don't need to come. Dad's still mad from that time. He wants to break us up. Now you and I need to meet somewhere neutral for a while, Oliver replied. Look, I don't like to go to hotels. I like the comforts of home. I think you're a mature guy who can work things out with your parents. And after all, it's your apartment, right? Why do they manipulate you so much and you fall for it like a kid, said Eva. Oliver hung up the phone and thought, indeed, Eva saw through everything. Parents always find a way to impose their opinions. If before it was just persuasion, now that he was older, it was blackmail. Still, it's good to have Eva around to point these things out. Thus, there was a sharp protest inside Oliver about his parents. Kara was nervous when Oliver once again invited her to meet his parents. She'd never been particularly confident, especially after a long shift at the hospital. When they arrived at Oliver's parents' house, Jack and Sarah greeted them with smiles and hugs. They managed to chat about all sorts of things along the way. It was a tough shift, saving a man from suicide, Kara said. What a job you have. But this is reality. The other side of reality, where illness changes destinies and people. I want to be a specialist with a capital letter. That's why I got this particular job, Kira said. Oliver flinched and looked at Kira with surprise. He knew she worked at the hospital, but he had thought she handled less heavy tasks. He had never talked to her about it, and this was news to him. They quickly reached the huge mansion where Oliver's parents lived. Well, hello, son. Good to see you. And this is your girlfriend, Kira, the one you told us about, said his father, trying to lighten the mood after that unpleasant conversation. Yes, Dad, this is Kira. What a nice girl. Nice to meet you, Kira. Nice to meet you, Sarah. They sat down at the table and began to talk, discussing various topics. Kira tried to be friendly and cheerful, but her nervousness was still evident. Oliver noticed that she was often distracted and uninvolved in the conversation. Oliver decided to lighten the atmosphere and suddenly turned the topic of conversation in an unexpected direction. Mom, Dad, I'll tell you where Kira works. She works as a nurse at the hospital. Nem, how interesting. What kind of tasks do you have to do there, Kira? Asked Sarah. Kira started to get even more nervous. Well, it's not a very interesting job, but someone has to do it, right? Yes, it's true. It's so interesting that sometimes Kira can't get out of this hospital, Oliver added sarcastically. Jack noticed that his son was overstepping his bounds. Why, it's not so bad. Any labor is useful. I suggest we change the subject, he said. Oliver didn't want to shut up. No, of course not, but Kira herself is always complaining that it's such a boring job. Kira felt her face turn red. She felt uncomfortable and awkward when all of a sudden they wanted to talk about her job. She wanted to say something in her defense, but the words wouldn't come. Sarah tried to smooth things over. Well, Kira, this is such important and noble work. You're doing a very important job, Jack added. Absolutely right, Sarah. We're proud of you, Kira. Kira felt a little better when her parents accepted her work with respect. Oliver still wouldn't let go of the situation. Well, you, of course, no offense. It's just that I didn't know you worked in such a lowly position before, he added. Kiara felt tears welling up in her eyes. She set the cup of tea on the table and stood up. She said goodbye to Oliver's parents and quickly walked out of the house. Oliver stayed with his parents and tried to explain why he had made a joke about her. The next day, Kira arrived at work and began to reflect on last night. She was disappointed in Oliver and didn't know how they would continue their relationship. She sat in her office and suddenly heard someone calling her name, and it was Sarah. Kira, there was a misunderstanding at dinner last night. I came to talk to you privately. I used to work in a hospital, too. I was a surgical nurse and I loved it. So don't think Oliver's words are true. He's very easygoing. I'm sure you've noticed that, her mother said. Kira smiled. She realized that Oliver wasn't a bad guy and she loved him. She decided to give him another chance. After a few meetings with Sarah, Kira had become firmly friends with her. Oliver's mother insisted in every way possible that their relationship continue and grow. It turned out that Sarah was well aware of her son's flighty nature. Of course, Kira did not know that at home every day Sarah and her husband discussed their relationship. The father believes that a girl like Kira is the only chance for their son to grow up and learn responsibility. In fact, Kira is the perfect match for Oliver because she is also a future medical professional. Kira had been prioritizing her work, but now she was paying more attention to Oliver. Tonight, they were going out together. Kira decided to give herself a chance to rest, but she could never get comfortable spending time around Oliver when she thought of her patients. So that those people would not suffer in her absence, Kira decided to make an arrangement with Julia. Julia, you are already your own man here. I have a small favor to ask of you. Could you look at him in John's room more often tonight? Make sure he doesn't get any sharp objects in his hands. We also need to make sure he doesn't get his hands on anyone else's drugs. He could drink them and accomplish his goal, Kira said. Don't worry, I'm thinking of talking to the guy myself sometime, Julia promised. Kira took a flying gait and flew off to meet her lover. Julia tended to the sick, helping some to eat and some to change. In the evening, she made sure that everyone drank their pills and went to bed. When the ward was quiet, she sat down in the foyer and finally allowed herself a cup of coffee in complete tranquility. But it wasn't to be. After a while, she heard the quiet squeak of wheels. It wasn't hard to guess that it was the wheels of a wheelchair. Julia began to watch further. The same depressed guy, John, was looking around before wheeling his wheelchair out of the room. Julia bent lower at her desk and it was hard to see her. The wheelchair moved slowly and headed towards the treatment room. When it disappeared behind the door, Julia followed. Through the gap in the doorway, she saw the guy hurriedly pocket some medication and hurried back. Stop. What do you want here? Julia asked John. He was instantly angry that he had been caught again, but he didn't confess his intentions. Instead, he turned on the victim again. I felt sick, so I decided to take a sleeping pill. I didn't want to bother the nurse to get tired of dealing with us all day. What if it's not true? Julia asked. If you don't believe it, that's your business. I need to go to my room, John said and rolled his wheelchair into the room. Julia followed him. When he pulled into the room, she followed him in and closed the door. You take over, I'll take a look around, Julia said, then crossed her arms and stood in the middle of the room. I'm going to complain to the doctor about you. What do you want me to do? Actually, you should have taken care of me. Brought me sleeping pills. John tried to get rid of the intrusive girl's attention. Don't lie to me, I know you're tired of living. I know all you've been doing lately is trying to get out of life. So you can't fool me, Julia said. John was taken aback by these words, since no one had ever allowed themselves to talk to him like that before. He had long ago realized that people are willing to comfort endlessly if you show them your weakness. So instead of actively pursuing treatment and getting back on his feet, he's busy finding an affordable way to commit suicide. You know, I feel unwanted and superfluous everywhere, and yet somehow I live. Before I was a blossoming man, I was on the road to success. I had grand plans for my life. One day, it all came crashing down and I turned into a vegetable. Who would want me like that? Before John could finish, Julia cut him off. I know you've been trying to kill yourself for a long time. Is that true? She asked, looking him straight in the eye. That's true, but I actually went to get some pills right now. I wanted to sleep better and not wake up at night, John said. That's all secondary. Let's talk about your plans. Do you really want to die? Maybe I can help you, Julia asked. Are you kidding? John looked at the girl with incomprehension. No, I'm not joking. I suggest you take a walk with me. Just you will tell me everything, Julia said, and without waiting for his answer, rolled the stroller towards the exit. She led the stroller along a large highway where rare cars were rushing by. They traveled a decent distance while John talked about his former life. It was very strange having such a life story, not to want to continue it. As I understand it, you were promising as a specialist. You had loving parents that you gave up on yourself. You built strong relationships that can build more. And as soon as you were put to the test and needed a little persistence and patience, you decided to resent the whole world and give up on life itself. I guess I don't understand something about it, Julia said and swerved the stroller into the driveway. Then she leaned over and locked the wheels of the stroller. When she was sure it was stationary, Julia stepped back to the sidewalk. John was left completely bewildered. Hey you, what do you think you're doing? Unlock the wheels. John started to get indignant. Don't even ask. You've been wanting to get out of your life for so long, make it look like an accident. Then your parents will have a chance to forget about you someday and won't spend the rest of their lives wondering what they did wrong. Then the hospital management won't have any complaints about me not looking after you that night while they were busy with more difficult patients. If you want to leave such an encouraging life, then leave it in such a way that no one gets hurt because of your stupid decision, Julia said and sat down on the sidewalk. Are you out of your mind? Can't you see how fast the cars are going? I do. That's why I brought you here on purpose. Any other car could be the death of you. So accept it with dignity. You're really crazy. I'll complain to the doctor tomorrow. You'll be fired. No, you should go to jail. How do you abuse an infirm person like that? John shouted. He continued his outrage at the top of his voice. But not all his words reached Julia. While he was shouting, another car was speeding toward him. John looked at the light of the headlights and suddenly pleaded with himself. He closed his eyes tightly and gripped the rail of his wheelchair with his hands. A moment later, he was shaken by the strong wind, and then the noise died down, followed by the disappearance of the car's headlights. What do you think? Death just blew right past you, and your hair was ruffled by the wind of the flying car. How does it feel? Julia shouted. You're insane. Just now I was barely alive, and next time it might not be. It will be on your conscience, you lunatic. Julia remained indifferent to his outrage. She just sat on the edge of the sidewalk and looked at this man, who in an instant had gone from suicidal to another person, who was desperately fighting for life. John, I'm offering you a deal. It'll be good for both of us. You give your unnecessary life to me, and you take my impending death. I think that's fair. Everyone gets what they want, Julia said. I don't get it. What kind of a trick is this? Shouted John, who was sitting in a wheelchair in the middle of the road. I am figuratively speaking to convey something very important to you. We've been having a heart-to-heart talk for almost half an hour, and you've never once asked me why I should bother with you and listen to your complaints. Meanwhile, I'm comparing them to my reality. You want to know. You're just doing your job. No, I'm a financier by trade. I was born into a finance dynasty, which means I could spend my life counting big bucks. I was really going for it. Then one day I got a diagnosis that put the whole course of my life into question. And now, for 8 months, I had been fighting hard for life and convincing myself every second that God hears my prayers and will not take my life at such an early age. I really need life, and if you don't need it, let's switch roles, Julia shouted back at him. Well, sorry, I thought you were the new staff here. I sympathize with you about the illnesses. I think you're giving up hope for nothing. I know a lot of people who've made a full recovery from an incurable diagnosis. Believe me, with such a courageous character and stubbornness, you will definitely win, said John, already changing his tone to a more friendly one. Well, that seems to be the deal. Are you ready to go back to your room and think about your position in life? Ideally, you should go back to your parents and work hard on your health. I've read your story. You have a real chance of getting back on your feet, Julia said. John sat in silence. Julia realized that he was thinking about something very important, which meant that the process was underway. A person can't accept important thoughts at once, so you have to let him live with the idea for a few days. With these thoughts, she got up from her seat and went to the wheelchair to take him back to the hospital. Seeing the headlights of another car flying towards them, Julia quickened her steps. All she had to do was make a couple simple movements to get John to the safe side of the road. But this car was going seemingly much faster than the other cars were passing. The next moment, Julia heard a loud rattle of metal and a lingering creak. The light of the headlights disappeared and total darkness reigned all around. She ran in the direction the car had rolled after flipping several times along the road. As she got close, all she could see was the wheels of the car in the air as it continued to spin. The air was filled with the smell of burning rubber. She pulled out her cell phone and called her colleagues for help. There was no time to wait for a medical ambulance. Judging by the moans, there were several people inside the overturned car. But where was John? Julia was horrified when she imagined the possible scenario of the collision. He could have stayed under the car with his stroller or fallen into the deep hole that runs right past the road. But John and his stroller are nowhere to be seen. Of course, Julia would be severely penalized for such an experiment and would have to answer to the law. But she was more worried about John than anyone else. Her colleagues who arrived on the scene carefully pulled the passengers out of the car. There were two of them, a young boy and a girl, both unconscious. We don't have time to go to the trauma center. Turn to the dispensary, there we will give first aid, and then we'll see, said one of the dispensary staff. And so we did. Bloody two young people. A boy and a girl were placed in one of the wards of the dispensary. Because of the profuse bleeding, the doctors were not able to recognize their faces immediately. And when they did, they were all shocked. In the girl, they recognized a young nurse, Kira, who had already managed to love for her diligence and curiosity. And the guy next to her face was familiar to everyone. He often came to the hospital to pick up Kira. What a miracle that they survived. They are about to get married, said the doctor to her colleague, dressing Kira's wounds. Really? How long has this girl been working for us? Asked another. About a year, I think. And you didn't pay attention to her last name and middle name? Asked the first one. No, I didn't. But her face is very familiar, as if I had seen her as a child somewhere. Or so it seems to me, said the second. It may well be the daughter of a very important person, said the second. Why does she work here as a nurse? Is there no better position for her? The first one asked again. There were decent places, but she didn't want to go there herself. I think her father sent her to us on purpose to get the information he needed, said the second. Did you see that guy's last name? He doesn't come from an ordinary family either. If so, when this girl comes to her senses, someone should talk to her, said the first. What? What is there to talk about? This complicated guy has a very bad reputation. The girl is promising, and the family has a good reputation. So, a friendly word of advice to warn her. Because she's young, she's probably fallen for his words, said the other one. It could well be. Kara opened her eyes and tried to figure out how she had ended up in the bed for her patients. All she could remember from last night was how they had rushed in Oliver's car after their evening walk to her patients. There was no way she could calm herself down and decided to make sure each of them were okay one more time before going to bed. Oliver was a little puzzled by this, as he generally didn't like her being so attached to her patients. So he pressed the gas to the fullest. Then they saw a dark silhouette on the road, and there was a crash. "Kara, how are you feeling?" Julia asked, who had been sitting next to her the whole time. "Julia, I don't really remember how it happened. It's a miracle. Your injuries are minor and Oliver's fine. And our John's fine, so he's got his brain back in place. But I'm going to be severely punished," Julia said. "How did you end up in there anyway?" "I wanted to teach that John a lesson because he tried to take pills again yesterday. I took him out to the big highway and put him in the middle of the road. I wanted to let him know that his desire to quit was really just a deep inner resentment against life. I wanted him to feel how precious life really is, especially when you're on the road to death. Why are you being so hard on him? He could really kill himself, couldn't he? He has a deep depression, and apparently his character was very vulnerable, so there's no way he could psychologically adapt to reality. There's nothing wrong with him, really. He and I were almost able to come to an understanding. I told him my story, he thought about it. Just as I was about to drive him off the road, a car jumped out. That's when I found out it was you and Oliver. How's Oliver doing? Where is he?" Kara asked. "Oliver's fine, so don't worry about anything and rest. I have to get ready. They're probably coming for me now," Julia said. "Who's coming? Are you going home to your place?" "No, the cops are probably coming. John was going to complain that I endangered his life, and the accident was my fault. Don't worry, I have nothing to be afraid of," Julia said and headed for the exit. A few days later, Kara asked to share a room with Oliver. That way they would be less bored. Oliver's injuries weren't serious, and he was counting the days until he would be allowed to go home. On one of those days, the head doctor of the dispensary came into their room. "Well, young people, are you getting better, or should I transfer you to the traumatology to treat you properly?" asked the doctor. Kara and Oliver answered that everything was fine, and they would return to their normal life in a few days. "Well then, Kira, you have a little business to attend to." "All attention to the door, please," the doctor said solemnly and gestured towards the front door. The door opened and an elderly man with glasses walked in. "Edward, here is your daughter. Watching her labor process, I had no doubt that you, as a professor of medicine, have raised a worthy daughter." In addition to her primary work, Kira had a keen interest in learning patient protocol. When we were sure that the girl had enough knowledge in her field, we allowed her to draw up her own protocols for each patient. And what do you think? Her rates were the highest, and not just in her specialty. For example, she worked hard on a paralyzed guy, and now this guy can partially walk on his own, all thanks to Kira's efforts. Our volunteer, Julia, who was diagnosed with cancer, is also successful. Kira was not just friends with her colleague, she followed the progress of treatment of these people and our other patients. I am sure that in the person of Kira, our medicine will soon be a very valuable staff member, said the chief physician. Well, if that's true, then good. And so my daughter is stubborn, long ago stopped communicating with us. It is all her personal merits. Well, Kira, convinced of your adulthood, maybe enough adventures, move home. Your mother misses you, said Professor Eduard Grigorievich, and stroked his daughter's head. Oliver was at a loss. Kira had never said who her parents were. Here now he had no questions left. Here his parents would be surprised that she was the professor's daughter, which meant he was getting one step closer to his goal. 3 days later, they were both discharged. Oliver hurried home. Kira went to her place. It was only in parting that she said, Oliver, I realized something important. I'm sorry, but I don't see a future in our relationship. I hope your parents will be understanding. So goodbye and take care of yourself. Oliver stared at her in bewilderment, but he didn't push for an explanation. On the contrary, he felt relieved that he would no longer have to pretend to be a loving boyfriend. The court hearing on Julia's case was held in public. Everyone was present. The staff of the 2 hospitals, a representative of the volunteer organization, Kira and Oliver and John. The trial was proceeding on a regular schedule. Julia sat quietly behind the bars, waiting for her turn to say her last word. Defendant, it's time to hear your side of the story. Can you tell us why you took the victim out into the roadway and left him in danger? Your Honor, the victim had been planning to pass away for a long time. I wanted to give him that opportunity in the safest way possible. First of all, I didn't want the young specialist, Kira, who was responsible for him, to get hurt. So I chose a day when Kira wasn't at the hospital. If he had swallowed pills, and this had happened more than once, the main nurse would be behind bars, and his parents could spend the rest of their lives bemoaning the fact that they couldn't keep their son from committing suicide. That would make it look like an accident. But, Your Honor, in the course of this plan, something changed dramatically in the other direction. For the first time, the victim dialogued and changed his position. That's where my story came in. What is your story? The judge asked. My story is that I am in the opposite position to the victim. I have been given a very pessimistic diagnosis. The details are in the documents at your fingertips. In short, it remains to be seen whether or not I will be alive in a year's time. But I really want to live. For 9 months now, every move has been to get my life back on track, to regain my confidence that there is time ahead to make plans and to dream. So I told all this to our victim and offered a symbolic deal. He leaves life in agreement with his choice, and then maybe I stay alive if human desires are destined to come true. Just as we solidified our agreement, a car appeared on the highway and collided with a wheelchair. But it was like that at first glance. As you may know from the case file, the victim was not actually injured. There was no direct collision with the car and his wheelchair. The car slid into his stroller and John was thrown to the side of the road. But while medical personnel were busy rescuing the young people in the car, no one noticed the victim. He managed by his own efforts to get out of the hole in which his stroller had fallen. He also managed to somehow get back to the hospital. As he told me later, this incident gave him confidence in his abilities. Therefore, I plead guilty to having confronted a man with a real death and thereby helped him avoid it. Let the decision be at your discretion, and within the law, Julia finished her speech. Will the defendant please tell me what is the state of your health now? The judge asked. I have consented to the operation. It will be a decisive step. But the operation is possible if the court authorizes it, Julia said. I'd like to address the victim, John. Do you have anything to say? The judge turned to John. Yes, Your Honor, I do. After what happened, I realized a lot of things, and I came to the conclusion that I had in fact shown weakness of character for a long time. The defendant, Julia, was an incredibly brave young woman. I believe she was in a state of desperation at that moment. She was desperately fighting for a chance to live. Thanks to her efforts, I realized that my situation was not the worst. And most importantly, I was convinced that I could walk on my own. Now, as you can see, I can partially move around without a wheelchair. I would like to thank Julia very much for this lesson and ask that she be released from the courtroom. I have no complaints about her at all, John said. Then, after a few formal procedures, the court read out the decision that Julia was released from the courtroom. 2 months later, she was operated on by Professor Edward, assisted by a young specialist, Kira. Already in 6 months, Julia was able to return to her former life.